to our podcast here. We're going to talk a little bit about the two GTs that we've had over the past 2 weeks. Been like real hectic. We haven't been able to get a podcast in at all because we've been traveling and doing stuff. Before we get all into all that, what do you guys got on your hobby table?
Go ahead, Brian.
Ogres. That's what I got on my hobby table.
Ogres.
Messing around with some ogres.
Ogres.
I got to finish this army.
Go ahead.
No, I just got to get this one finished. I mean, I finished with the OBR stuff. I was planning on playing at some point soon. I may take that to Austin. I haven't decided yet. But ogres is what I'm painting on right now.
Well, Austin ogres with guns, maybe?
Ogres with lots of fucking guns. Yeah. I'm tired of everybody. Like, I had fun with Archeon. We'll get into that later, but Unleash Hell is probably the strongest ability in the game. The single strongest command ability in the game.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about Dark Prophecy. I don't want to hear about any of that. When you can kill my model on your turn, or on my turn when I'm charging you, like that's a tough ability to deal with.
I didn't kill him on.
No, not yours, not you in particular, but I mean, my Marauders have died on the way in, like the things that shouldn't have killed them. Just spike some damage rolls and.
For sure. Well, Evan, what you got, Mister Worldwide over here? What you got?
Working on. Oh shit, the thing is fucking.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, it can't. It doesn't work. Beautiful. All right, so if you look from here, I'm working on Gobsprag. Crew boys. Right. Yep, that's my thing. He
polish on him.
Yep. I rushed his ass for New Orleans, and now I actually get to take my time and finish giving the respect that he deserves as far as a proper base and everything.
I got 86 shots of fucking respect waiting on it.
He's not gonna be anywhere in range.
It's like one of the most unique things we put in the game. I think is that it's like a big vulture, and I don't think there's anything that's
just a regular bird thing. Oh, I mean, he's got like a little venom tail thing, but. Other than that, I mean, he's just a big fucking bird. Like
barbed tail.
Yeah. Almost.
I mean, you see the one that Jack did? That looks pretty good. He's got it on a Shrine Luminor.
Who, Radley?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. But cool.
It's pretty cool.
So, what are we talking about today, Gavin?
What you got there, Gavin? What you working on?
I got stuff too. Don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got some Soul Blight. So that's old Lockavai. I'm working on what I'm gonna try and get done for Austin. We'll see. It's a lot of army to get done in 2 months, but I'm gonna try to get it done.
Do we have 2 months? Is that how long we have until Austin?
Yeah. Just under, yeah.
Oh, I'll definitely be able to get my ogre
6 weeks.
Ready.
Right.
Yeah, buddy.
But, that's it. Trying to get it all put together. I think Soul Blight's in a really good place right now. Do all kinds of different builds. I don't have any Blood Knights or Prince Vordry, so it's a little different than the normal standard, what seems to be the linchpins of everybody's army. I don't have those, so we'll see how it does. But now we can get into tournament results now. Since you were trying to rush us ahead.
Nah, I was not. That was not true.
What are we talking about first?
Hammerfest. We'll give you
Hammerfest.
We'll talk about you.
We'll go in sequence then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I won that shit, dude. Like I said, I would. Tried a little bit, I guess. I guess I tried a little bit, a little bit more than I expected to. but no. It was a super awesome tournament, and I'm really happy with how the community turned out for it, how it was run by the tournament organizers, like our boy, Mr. Kennedy, and I guess Kyle Valdez is okay too. He did a little bit, and then and Hunter actually came out and helped him too. That was super awesome to see because it was cool for him to come out and have some fun. I know he's dealt with some, some just life trouble shit in the past month. I think it was cool for him to come out and get his mind off of things and contribute to something that I think we'd all been missing from our lives a little bit. Like
yeah.
Warhammer's something that like brings us all together, and it was really cool to see everybody get back together and play again.
Mm-hmm.
And with the numbers that we were at too, weren't we like 80 something? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like around high 70s, I think. We had a few drops from Saturday to Sunday, but yeah, I think we stayed above 70 for the whole tournament.
That was the number one take for me. It was just seeing, like, we stay in communication with these people because of Discord and Facebook and all the groups that we have, but just hanging out in person, like some of the funnest games that I have in memory were at that event. Like me and Dan Norris had fun. Like,
yeah, he's a hoot, dude. Like,
yeah. Like, I mean, you and I think we had a fun game. It was a good one. And then, all of my games were fun.
Was not quite for all the marbles, but definitely a game of significance. It was like really tight game, high stakes. It was good though. Those are my favorite games. Those are the games that I keep chasing. Those kind of games, like it feels like you'll play like 5 or 6 games and maybe not even get one of those, and it's like good to have those.
Mm-hmm.
As a competitive player, like that's what I'm looking for is really tight games that come down to dice.
For me, Hammerfest was like, I don't know, it's kind of like me proving to myself that I could do it. I could play for a tournament win. Like,
yeah.
You and I had a good game. You won the overall event. I still went 4-1 because I was stuck in that 3-2 area with always something goofy just keeping me in that 3-2 area. And I was like, but here lately, the one thing, then what we talked about in New Orleans is how I've noticed that getting to 3-2 is a lot easier than it used to be. I just can almost do 3-2 with it, without going too hard. But trying to get those last 2 wins are always. It's been a good couple of weeks for me. I mean, I didn't go 4-1 in New Orleans, but I caught some tough breaks. But
to play some real crazy list / player combinations that list isn't necessarily prepared super well to deal with.
No, it definitely wasn't prepared to deal with 4 wind spirits. And then, and it's not prepared to bounce off of things. It doesn't bounce often, but when it does, it sets me back a whole turn a lot of times, like on scoring, and it's not a list that's designed to play well from behind either. Like,
right. Also, like a little, like this is an AOS talk, so. Everybody who's here for AOS, let's stick your fingers in your ears. But we played Legion at Hammerfest. And Legion's, it's okay, dude. It's a fun little game, man. Like it was a little 1-day event. Andrew Fournier ran it, and I was like pleasantly surprised with that. So there are games other than Age of Sigmar too.
Yeah, that one was fun, and I'd like to leave it in that realm of fun, not trying too hard, like just playing the things that I like and. I don't care about the results. You know what it was for me? It allowed me to like roll some dice and clear that like game 1 jitters. Like it helped me the next day. I was ready to go. Like I was pumped. I was in the zone. I didn't go into any games thinking I was going to lose them. Even when we played, I was like, well, he better bring his A game because I'm coming. But then you did, and I lost. So.
You better be ready. 5 minutes later, he was ready.
But Evan had, I think he had some stuff come up over the weekend when he had to drop, right?
No.
The Hammerfest, at least.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I just dropped. I had like a really bad experience. No, I mean like so all the people I played were really cool. I think I fought game 1. It was Kyle from Houston, and then game 2 was from Austin. Game 3 and 4 were both from Dallas, and it just my list was kind of it was really did really well. I mean, I fought your doc list that you ended up winning with my Nighthawk list back in 2.0 and did pretty well against it, but in 3.0, man, it's just been really rough with Nighthawk, and I haven't really found the groove for him. So when I was just trying to go there, and I was like, I'll do pretty decent against giants, like destruction in general, and then a couple order and chaos armies, and I got pretty much just death armies. I mean, that it was like every army I fought was like, I'm +1 save, I'm ignoring your rend, I'm re-rolling saves, and I fought 2 Nagashes. I was like, man, this is one rough ass tournament. So yeah,
I've been there. I've been there when you're playing and like the dice don't go your way, and you have like a game that you feel like you could have won, but the dice killed you. Like that was me on game 4 with Gavin at New Orleans. I felt like,
for me, it wasn't even that. Like I felt like I rolled pretty decently for the most part, but I just, like when you fight a Petrifex army and their entire army's re-rolling saves already, and they ignore the rend, and your entire army only does -1 rend, it just, there was nothing I could do. I mean, it was just bouncing off the entire game. And they already don't really have monsters. We talked about that in a previous episode where they only have 1 monster in their entire roster, and he's only 10 wounds. So it just not super reliable right now. I think they're like very close to being good. And actually, we saw what's his face do really well with Night Haunt. Trevor, thank you. Yeah, Trevor did really well. And it was kind of like the opposite, because we ran those lists back in 2.0, and mine did it much better than his did, and it was like the complete opposite in this case. So good on Trevor for doing so well with his Night Haunt, but I just couldn't do it, and I was not in the right place. So game 5, I was like, you know what, I don't want to be that guy where I'm just gonna go ahead and drop. So
close to the end.
I know.
No points.
0 points. Yeah. But I got to see everyone else play their games. I got to see Gavin's stressful game 5, and that was a lot of fun. So
I told you that. Look, they weren't even talking for like the first
it just walk over
rounds.
there, you could feel the aura, just like.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was like 2 computers communicating through Wi-Fi. That was it. Like they weren't talking. There weren't any no body language out of the 2 of them. It was just in the zone,
like a chess game, right? Like.
Yeah, a chess game if 2 computers are playing it. Like it was him and Robish. That game was intense. Like
I'm like, oh, that's cool. They have like this mirror match, and like they have their Marathis right there, and I'm like, oh wait, that's each other's Marathi, just in their own line. They just traded Marathis.
Wild game. Yeah. I need to skip ahead too much. We kind of talk about all our games, but yeah, that game was. I said it at the time, and I stand by it. I think it's probably my favorite game Age of Sigmar that I played so far. Just because it felt like I never had a game where more dice rolls mattered. Like it felt like every dice roll mattered. Like every dice roll affected the outcome of the game, or like the path that the game was on. So, like that's what you're looking for. I think you're trying to make the dice matter in competitive Age of Sigmar. Like that's high level Age of Sigmar is that you're trying to make the dice matter. And it was great, I couldn't ask for more from that game. But do you all guys want to talk about like the games before that? Like there's other games before, like me and Robish playing, right?
Oh yeah.
Who'd you play first, Brian?
I played Mitch. He grudged me with the like funniest grudge ever. Like talking about my mother in Old English. Like
a Shakespearean grudge, dude. I love it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And then we had a really good one. It was like one of those ones where, I mean, he was playing Deepkin, and it was a game because of my Demon Prince and my ability to know the turn priority. I felt like I was in control of that game, but at any moment it could have flipped. Like it could have flipped real quick, but he didn't have the ability to flip the tide, so I was able to get some, and I double turned between 1 and 2, so I was able to dig in and get enough done on turn 1 and 2, and then set up for turn 3 when he was going to come in with his high tide. By the time that happened, there wasn't enough to really matter. And with a decent basically I had Archaon in the middle and everything else behind him, and I rolled like a 5 on a redeploy with a Demon Prince there. Mm-hmm. So I moved Archaon back, and most of his stuff wasn't even in charge range anymore. He got in with the Eidolon, and I think he killed my Demon Prince, but it didn't matter at that point. Turn 3 was over. So I didn't even – the only thing I engaged with After that, I think was Archeon went in and killed the Eidolon, and it was like from there it was just downhill. I think after that he picked on turn 4 he picked Bring It Down and went after my Chaos Lord on Manicore, Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Manicore, and between his Oracular Visions and All Out Defense and Finest Hour that turn, and then 5-up Feel No Pain, he just from the amulet, he just tanked it all and then teleported himself to the back of the board to go get. I think I went for Savage Spearhead on that turn, and that was a good game. It was like I said, it was one of those that was like never really over until the last dice roll. It was like still pretty tight at any double turn. Any double turn from him could have flipped a game pretty easily.
That's good. It's an interesting matchup. Like Deepkin is at I think a better place than a lot of people thought when we flipped to 3.0, and that it really 3.0 favors a MSU playstyle, and Deepkin can get away with playing MSU playstyle because they have a mechanic that lets their entire army attack before you go on turn 3. If you can just get the army to turn 3, or if you have flip tide turn 2, which I really like the idea of flip tide now over like traditional Deepkin. But it is what it is. So you had a really close game. That's good to hear. Mitch is a good guy too. I've played him.
I think a lot of it with Deepkin too is a lot of players were banking on that dumping all the CP into the extra attacks, and you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people were like knee-jerk reactions to their army because it wasn't like the exact iteration of what they're playing at 2.0 didn't carry over to 3.0, and they're like, well, it's terrible now because I can't do what I've been doing for 2 years. Whereas, like, you just look a little deeper, you're gonna find an alternative playstyle to what you had before that might even be stronger than what you had before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. Just looking at his list when we did the list review, I had no idea what it wanted to do by looking at what was all there. I mean, I avoided this turtle. I never got in combat with this turtle ever, which because of the Demon Prince. And I think the turtle finally came in and killed some Marauders, I think, or maybe finished them off or something at some point. But the game was out of hand by then, and I just stayed away from it. At one point, I was like, well, I don't know if there's a battle tactic I can get. And then I went with Savage Spearhead, but I needed a lot to happen for that to go off. I needed to cast the teleport. I needed to move, and then I needed to make a charge. Well, what also happened, I rolled 7 Marauders back into the Marauder unit. So the turtle didn't kill them all. He killed it down to like 2 or 3. And I rolled 7 back into the unit and then made the charge into his Tidecaster and killed his Tidecaster. And got the last, but that also because him being there and letting me have that charge got me for Savage Spearhead too. So that was it.
Rally is pretty good. You do it in both turns too, which a lot of people don't know. It's pretty good.
I do it often with Vanguard. Like it seems like a wasted CP, but you get a couple of Vanguard back over a game. It's a lot.
Yeah. I think you said you play Kyle Corcoran, Evan.
Yeah, fought Kyle. We actually did a kind of a rematch. He played the same army that we fought in LSO, which was the Dallas tournament. And then well, that's why I grudged him. I was like, let's just get out of the way. We always play at these tournaments anyway. So it was Night Haunt versus that, and it was kind of similar to how it was the first time around, where he went first, didn't really do anything, but he did get on the objectives, and then I realized, I was like, that's a lot of stuff to try to get off objectives, because his entire army was +1 save turn 1, which I was like, okay, there goes my Ren. So, yeah, so I slammed everything, and he got every buff off too, so it was kind of like a little scary, but, Night Haunt have everything flies, so I was able to tag his even though he really screened well, because of the terrain, I was able to get like a little cavalry unit into the range of his 30 block of whatever the heck they're called, the Iron Drakes or
Iron
20,
Drakes,
yeah, 20 block, 30 block. I can't remember. It was a big block of Iron Drakes, and so I was able to. He unleashed hell on it, killed it immediately, of course, but it was able to keep me from losing my my black coach and my other important stuff. So. And I did pretty good. I whittled away at most of his stuff. I even made the 9+ charge on the it was exactly a 9, so I didn't get to fight right away, but it was right into the with the 20 blade geist, so I was able to flank and take it out. And then we did the roll off. He won it, and he was able. I'm sorry, no, I won it. I was able to get the roll off, and I was able to kind of take most of it and just keep him in basically tied down with everything. So he couldn't do. I put it in such a way that he couldn't get his shot off with the Iron Drakes again. Like they were stuck within 3 of something. So if he would only be able to shoot like the one Hex Wraith that I had left, and so that entire battle round of not being able to do anything just really hurt him. And yeah, so that was pretty good. And then game 2, like I just bounced and died on turn 1, and then game 3 was a draw because he threw Nagash at me, and then I killed it. But he was racking up so much points I couldn't really do anything. And then game 4, I just bounced off a Nagash again and lost.
Pain.
It was definitely the more brutal version of what I usually play.
What was your game 1, Gavin? Who'd you get? Oh yeah, we know. I know.
I finally got to play Mr. Matt Taylor, and it was a really good game. Good dude. I'd never been able to talk to him before, so it was nice to actually get to know him a little bit more than like just the face of Texas Masters, right? And it was a game that I'd wanted to play for a while. Like he was number 1 in the standings for the inaugural season back in 2019, and I never got to play him in any of the tournaments. So my thought process of always want to play the strong players, right? Give me the strong players. This tournament, I got a lot of them, but I kind of had to eat my words on that a little bit. But I'm always looking for those games because those are the games I'm looking for in Age of Sigmar. But unfortunately, the mission plus the armies we're playing kind of resulted in a little bit of a lopsided matchup. Daughters just shoots OBR to death. He played well, like as far as like over the board. With the options that he had, he made good decisions, but yeah, I just shot him to death with those snakes, and I shoved the Shadow Queen into the middle of the board, and she did her thing, and yeah, he ran out of stuff, and we called it after battle round 3, I believe. So really good game. Glad I got to play him. I think he wound up doing pretty well in the tournament too. So yeah, that was my game 1.
Yeah, I got Jeffrey Viscitis up on table 1, where I live.
You stole the placard, dude. You took it. Why?
That's because I told you I was going to be there all the rest of the weekend. Well, Trevor came by and he was like, "Enjoy table 1, Brian. It'll be your first and last time." Nope, I'm going to be here all weekend. And then when I lost to you, me and Dan decided we were taking it down. We were going to play on table 1 anyway. So
there you go. Dan,
yeah, I got well, no. It was definitely my idea. But I got Viscitis, the king of the weird knobs, game 2. And it's funny that we had recently just played a similar game when he had Reaper's Archaon. He was playing Reaper's Scarbrand and a Rage, Insensate Rage Bloodthirster with a Demon Prince and a ton of bodies and 6 Skull Crushers. Just a lot of things that conventionally, if you look at our 2 lists, like a lot of things I didn't have answers for, especially with that Khorne Demon Prince there. But I outdropped him, and I, stayed out of his threat ranges and had him take the first turn because he didn't leave me any room for anything with the Marauders on turn 1. And then when he moved the Insensate Rage Bloodthirster on the right flank all by itself, and he was measuring behind it, like he was measuring behind. I was like, yeah, he didn't leave me any room there, and I thought for sure he was going to bring something up in front of it to screen it, and then he didn't. And then I remember like he was like, and then I went on my turn, and I was like, well, I did all my stuff, and I was like, well, I'm gonna teleport, and he was like, oh, I fucked up. Like he get like, and I got the teleport off. Nothing was in range to stop it. Got the teleport, and 30 Marauders parked 9 inches away from a lone bloodthirster, and obviously they went in and killed him. And I knew I had the and I knew I had the double, so I was able to play really aggressively. So I was able to get Archaon into some things in the middle of the board. He put his Skull Altar in the middle of the table and garrisoned his Demon Prince into it, which is good. But then all I had to do was get Archaon into that whole area of things that were there. So I was able to get rid of his Bloodthirster pretty early also. I mean, it's not his Bloodthirster, his Demon Prince pretty early also. And then I had the Vanguard on the flank that I was going to go after Scarbrand with. And he got me. I looked over and I didn't realize that I had killed 5 of his units on turn 1, and he had 5 Blood Tithe. And he was just sitting there waiting for he was like, just let me know when your hero phase is over. I'm like, what is he talking about? Usually I'm pretty good about tracking people's Blood Tithe because I played that army for so long. And then I picked Bring It Down on Scarbrand, and I was like, 3 Vanguard. They're going to chop him to bits, And he charged me with 10 Fleshhounds. Obviously, the Vanguard killed all the Fleshhounds, but I wasn't able to get into Scarbrand. So it was like, I just lost my battle tactic. I was like, I have to play this game insanely well the rest of the way out, or I could just lose right there on not getting that battle tactic. And he got Scarbrand in. It was like, well, now that Archaon, he didn't have anything left except Scarbrand and the Blood Secrator, and I think 6 Skull Crushers. So he charged Scarbrand into Archaon and did, between the 2 attacks, did 40 mortal wounds, and I saved 21 of them.
Jesus.
And then Slayer of Kings Scarbrand off the board. And then the Skull Crushers finished. Yeah, the Skull Crushers actually finished Archaon off that turn. Luckily, 1 die. I rolled 2 ones and rolled one of them back into a 1, or Archaon would have lived through that combat and retreated out and commenced the healing back up. So he did get him that turn, but he didn't get him with a monster, which helped. And then from there, with Scarbrand being out of the way, the Vanguard were able to charge in and take out the Skull Crushers. It takes a couple of turns because Skull Crushers are so resilient, but at that point I was sitting on every objective, and it was like I was just having my way with him at that point. Both of us had lost our really big threats, but I still had Vanguard and a Demon Prince on the board, and basically everything on the board. My Marauders were still there, and so it was a good game. It was a real good game. He just gave me that Bloodthirster too early. Like, if he didn't give me that Bloodthirster when he did, and that Bloodthirster was running around after losing Archaon, it would have been trouble.
That's cool. It brings up a kind of a point that I've seen a lot in 3.0 is that you really want to avoid taking kill battle tactics, like battle tactics that are dependent on you killing something, because there's so much that can go wrong. Whereas, like, I find myself playing around with like Ferocious Advance, Conquer, Monstrous Takeover, Aggressive Expansion, and Savage Spearhead. Like, those are the 5. Like, those are my bread and butter battle tactics. I find myself on a lot of the time because they don't require you to interact with your opponent, so they're much more reliable. Especially like as you get extended into the game. I find that like those little 1 and 2 point swings that you might get by killing something with a monster don't necessarily matter as much as just scoring the battle tactic. Unless you have something pinned in combat to where they can't redeploy and can't get away from whatever you're trying to kill it with. Like, if there's something that's pinned in low health and it's like a slam dunk, then just take the battle tactic. But if you're like, You know, if you're going in, you're like, I'm going to kill this with a monster, and you're going to be like 6 inches away, and they get to redeploy, they could turn that 6-inch charge into like a 10-inch charge, and then you just fail to charge and don't get your battle tactic. So it's just something I've seen in 3.0. I've really gotten away from taking anything that is dependent on killing, unless it's just a slam dunk. But that's kind of just been my experience with 3.0. My game 2, I get to play Mr. Caleb Hastings. I had never played him either, so I was happy to play him.
You said his name. He just joined the chat like 10 seconds ago.
Uh-oh. Dude, he's in here. But he's been like a stalwart, like Seraphon OG all the way back into like GHB 2018, like those rules. He's playing Seraphon with that stuff, like the old reroll everything Bastillodons and summon a million skinks that everybody thought was super balanced and, you know, great for the game, right? He's playing the beef. He's playing all monsters. No slam, which was interesting because you see a lot of Seraphon like predicated on slam play. And he's like, I don't need this shit. He brought Go Trek and monsters, and he's like, I want to smash. So,
That's cool.
I respect that. And we had like we played on Tectonic Interference, and it had like a big like grinder match in the middle of the board, and I was able to like just outlast him and edge him, but it was super close. Like his shooting is hard to deal with. Like his mortal wounds are hard to deal with. Reducing the damage on my melee helped a lot. He just couldn't get into the bow snakes, and the bow snakes chewed up enough. Like, but it was still really close in the game. Great game, and you know, even better dude. So I was really happy I got to play him. That was my game 2. Yeah, another 20-0.
He says he
Nice.
misses the reroll of everything for the Bastillodon.
Bet you do.
Yeah, I bet you do.
4+ feel no pain. It's all right. You know, it's okay.
So I
But
guess. Oh, sorry. You still got something.
Are we going to game 3?
Game-
You
Yeah.
already-
No. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought that.
You don't want to talk about Hammerfest. I got it, dude. Like, nah, here's all my games. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but we're going to talk about our Hammerfest. We played all 5 games.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We played all 5 games.
I ran through mine like
Yeah,
super
I got-
quick to give you time, so go ahead.
Yeah, I got Justin on round 2. Justin Grimminger, one of our boys, and I was pretty good at that point. I think I drank like legitimately like 4 beers during deployment, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna get you, Justin." I was like, and then he was like, "Yeah, you got it, man. You're gonna. I can't beat this list, blah blah blah." And then he started he took his turn and started going for real. I was like, "Wait a minute, he's trying to hypnotize me here." He's trying to,
Sweet talk, yeah.
convince me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and he came. I mean, he came up. I rolled Dark Prophecy roll. I knew what I had. So I gave him the turn, and he came up and just kind of just touched the objectives. So I went up and took them back. Took one back with on the one side. That was the Savage Gains, if I remember correctly. So I went up and took the right side objective with the Vanguard, and went up and took the left side with Archaon. And then on the next turn, I got into his one of his small crushes on turn 2 on my turn 2, and to his credit, it lived. He was rolling hot on 5+ saves, like enough to just barely keep the thing alive for another turn, which allowed him to get aggressive with his other one. But then, with me never giving up a double turn, and then I had Demon Prince and 30 Marauders sitting on one objective, Vanguard on the right side, and Archaon about to finish off that Black Bloodthirster and make his way back to the white one. I think we called it at like turn 3 because of where the points were going to go. Like, he would have taken my objective for one turn, and then I would have taken his objective for the rest of the game, and then probably taken mine back on that turn. No, it's not necessarily that white one would have died that turn, but I would have had enough bodies to soak up the objective for another turn or two and deal with that Maul Crusher banging on everything down there until Archaon got there to Slayer of Kings' ass.
So got him, dude. Double Maw Crush it, took him out. Justin actually wound up going like
4-1.
8th place or something, right? 4
Yep.
and 1, 8th place.
Yeah,
So
he did
that
really
was
well.
really cool to see. He hasn't.
Funny how the Harambe dudes were just slaughtering each other at that tournament thing.
Yeah, well, you know,
There was like 8 of us there.
decent Age of Sigmar players, you know. But he's just kind of recently hopped into competitive play, so it's cool to see him do really well.
Yeah, I was really happy for him to be doing that well. Just sorry that he had to catch these hands on game 3. I've been there. I called him on game 4, dude. Don't worry.
But I got to play Brandon Sullivan again. This is the second time I got to play him. The first time we played, he played Gets into my feck back in Slambo. And that's also one of my favorite games of Age of Sigmar I've ever played. And I hadn't got to really talk to him in a while, basically since that tournament. So it was really cool to like get to play him again, like catch up, because he's an excellent player. He's not quite as known as some of the other people on the Sigmar scene, but I think he'll quickly become more prominent as we play over the course of the season, because he's a top-notch player. He's going to place well at all these tournaments that he decides to do. So that's somebody to keep your eye on is Mr. Sullivan. But he's playing Soulblight now. Double Mortis Engine, Legion of Night Manfred, like really interesting list that you don't see like pretty much anywhere. Like he's got real unique take on, what the tools that he wants in Age of Sigmar. It's very unique to his play style. He had the kind of similar approach to Gets, but we've had to play Savage Gains, and unfortunately he had to walk into bow snakes, and it's not fun. Let me tell you, the bow snakes are, they're not too fun to walk into. And I kind of just shot him up. The terrain let me create a choke in the center of the map, and he kind of piled onto one side, and then just kind of touched the other side with his Vangorian Lord. So I shot the Vangorian Lord to death, and then was able to clip his back objective with the Shadow Queen and out-model him after I shot the unit that was on the objective off. I was out-modeling him on that objective, and I doubled him, so I got basically 8 points off that rotation, and we kind of talked it out from there. But, excellent player. It was really good to meet up and talk to him again. But, so day 3, 320-0s. It's okay, right? That's kind of the ideal scenario. It's okay. Could be a little better than 320-0s, right?
You know what? I was 20-0 on 3 games, and I'm not gonna. There wasn't a bit better that we could have been at that point. Maybe a 19. Maybe I could have ducked you on game 4.
Oh no!
I wouldn't have wanted to change it for. I had a great time.
But yeah, we had like the 4. I think there's 4 people left on max points for game 4. It was me, you, Mr. Norris, which that was really cool to see, because he hasn't played in a while, and he's playing ogres, like something that a lot of people consider weak. Not me, but a lot of people consider ogres to be a weaker army, and for him to be 3-0, 60 points was very impressive for day 1. And then Mr. Robish with 60 points with his Daughters of Cain. A little bit different flavor than mine, but also 60-0. And it was weird. We're like waiting for the pairings, and they just kept they waited. They held the pairings for suspense. So kept mulling every matchup in my head, and then of course we wound up getting paired together, like as is customary. And we played on, what was that mission? What did we play on? You remember?
5 objectives. Feral Foray. Is that what it was?
The Feral Foray was game 6 or game 5. 5 objectives. I don't remember. I don't know what it's called. Some kind of stupid ass like monster.
It was the one where you. It was the one where you had to hold an objective consecutive 2 turns before you could even score.
Struggle? Right?
Power struggle. I hate that mission. I hate it.
But dude, we had like solid game. Like from my perspective, it was like you made me go first, which was the right call, and I got like a pretty low success rate play off on the first turn where I had a bunch of 50-50 rolls. or buffs on my shrine, and I got like 4 out of the 5, which is like a buff or 2 more than you're supposed to get. And I got the really important ones, which was the movement ones, which let me get into the Marauders and kill the Marauders on turn 1, which I think kind of like paid dividends as the game went on. Because on that game, like those Marauders are going to reset a lot of those objectives. I think, like in practice, I think that's how you're resetting my backline objectives is with Marauder charges. So I can't let that stay on the board. So I was happy with trading the shrine for Marauders. But I didn't. I don't know why I didn't anticipate you rolling a 4+ on that scryer. You always do it, right? That's the meme. But I'm like, my path to victory here probably requires me to play aggressively. You can't wait on it, right? So that was a trade. But then he doubled me and then got into the snakes, and then the snakes took mortal wounds on Unleash Hell. Slightly above average, I think
probably where I put Archaon, because of where you came up and took the middle. Like I was hoping to get into the bow snakes a turn earlier with the double, but the way that you positioned in the middle, I couldn't get over everything. Terrain, there was a big chunk of terrain in my way and a big chunk of Marathi in my way. Shadow Queen. So I was really hoping to make that happen on turn 1. That way I got 2 turns of banging on those bow snakes before the Shadow Queen could get into him. But I didn't. And then he took 7 mortal wounds. You rolled 10, and I shrugged 2 of them and bounced 1 back at you. So he took 7 mortal wounds on the way in. I believe he had already had 2 on him from Black Horror, maybe, or something. I think he'd already. So he was on like 11 wounds.
He had miscasted.
That's what it was.
The damage was he miscasted first turn.
So then I went into the bow snakes and did nothing. Got like 4 of them, I think, maybe. But then I did get on your back objective, and I reset that. Took that, had a decent play there, and then you just like murdered him on your turn. But he only had, by the time it was your turn, I think he had like 6 wounds, or maybe 9 or something like that. Or by the time we got to the combat phase, he had 6 wounds on him, and it was not a whole lot. And once he died,
he had like 11. So he shrugged a lot of damage. I shot him twice with those bow snakes and only did I didn't do that much more damage. But then the Shadow Queen, I got Mind Razor off, which was big. And went in, he was pinned, so he had nowhere to go as far as redeploy. And Shadow Queen got into him, and I think you.
I knew he was. Yeah, I knew he was going to be pinned for sure, but I hoped that he would kill enough of those bow snakes to change the game, the outcome. And I didn't expect him to take that much damage on the way in. I thought he would be able to tank most of it. I wasn't worried about. I figured mathematically you get 5 through, and then mathematically I shrugged 2.5 of those, so I take 2 to 3 on the way in. And I figured, okay, Archaon will have a turn of healing with 5 wounds on him. I should get 2 back, so he'll have an Archaon sitting on 17 wounds. I'm okay with that in the middle of all your army with all those buffs up. I'm okay. But no, I had an Archaon on 9 wounds at the top of your turn, so I had to get shot twice with bow snakes, and then. But I don't think anything really, as far as play wise. I mean, that's all that's what I've been trying to do with my game, is improve it to the point where I don't make mistakes that hand my opponent the game. I mean, but I don't think I did. I think the play was I needed to get those bow snakes off the board. If I got that off the board, I'd already killed a unit of combat snakes. At that point, your ability to score objectives is just based on the Shadow Queen being a monster. And then if Archaon's still alive, I can challenge that objective everywhere you go. So,
yeah.
And then I had a second monster to help challenge with that also, because if I get those bow snakes off the board, other than the Shadow Queen, there's not a lot left that threatens the Sorcerer Lord on the Mana Core. So I can really play around that and the Vanguard running around. But when he went down that turn, it was like, whew, it was one of those games that was close until it wasn't. It was just like, he went down a turn too early, and Marathi had 0 wounds on it. Shadow Queen had 0 wounds, so it's like, well, that's probably it. But I tried to play, but wasn't anything I could really do at that point.
Yeah, it's really close. I think Aya Shireen probably would have affected that game enough to swing it back in your favor. But Aya Shireen 2 OP, dude. So they made it a conditional -1 to hit instead of just a reroll 6s all the time. Which, I mean, whatever, I guess. But that was a boon for that matchup for me. But
yeah, I mean, you have to reroll those 6s. I'm talking about.
yeah, it's different interaction for sure.
Mm-hmm. But if Worms had machine guns, birds wouldn't fuck with them. So, like,
yeah, that's fair, dude. Big true. But yeah.
Is that what they say in Georgia?
we have a couple of those.
Write it down, dude. It's a Brian Lofton quote. If birds had machine gun, or if worms had machine guns, birds wouldn't fuck with them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
There's another one, if frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass when they hop. There's a whole lot of them in Georgia.
Okay, got nothing better to think about than like, what if this animal had something that completely changed its anatomy?
But that was game 4. I was able to get a 20-0 because I think it was like turn 3 when all that had kind of resolved. So I was able to pick up those 10 points of difference on the back end of the game. And then we arrive at our round 5, the penultimate matchup there between myself and Mr. Robish. It had been a game I've been waiting on a really long time. I'd noticed he hopped into Masters kind of late in 2019, so he wasn't up on the leaderboard, but he had been placing very well at tournaments, and then he wound up winning the Texas Masters. So I knew that he was a really strong player, and I knew that he was going to know Doc extremely well because he's played it since it's been a thing in Age of Sigmar, and he has as many repetitions or more as anybody that plays the army, and had already placed really well at LSO a couple of months before. He had won that tournament on 5-0, same list, brought the same list to Hammerfest. So I was like, I don't know if I was definitely looking forward to the matchup, but you also have like a little bit of reservation, right? Because it's going to be a tough matchup too. But it's one that I wanted, and the game delivered on everything that I wanted from it. It was like I kind of touched on it before. I've never had a game where that many dice rolls mattered, and he's a very gracious opponent, very nice. And we were able to have a very competitive game, but also a very clear one because we were both using intent a lot. So there was no like verbiage mistakes or misunderstandings as far as communication. So it was just purely down to decision making. So it's like one of the most rewarding games that Sigmar I've played, and I'm looking forward to playing him again. I'm glad that I was finally able to play him at a tournament, and because unfortunately you just can't play everybody. A lot of the time you're going to miss those guys, and the way the matchup structure is. Not Brian and me, we play every time, but Texas is just full of strong players. So
well, we were talking about it before we did the podcast. At the last 3 tournaments, including the last Atomic tournament, I am 9-4, and 3 of my losses are you. So I played you at all 3 of the last 3 tournaments I've played at. Right?
Yeah, I haven't played a lot. The game kind of went as we were both struggling for the center of the board, and it was funny like in how like similar each side of the board went as far as the mirror match. Like a little bit of nuance difference because of the unit choices that we had. I had a prayer, and prior towards that prayer more, so I had less bodies, but he had more bodies but no prayer. So he had more toughness, or I had more toughness on the unit that he was trying to kill, whereas he had more bodies to put in front of the unit that I was trying to kill, which was bow snakes. Bow snakes is the critical point of any dock list. You're trying to push that away from the center of the board and or kill it. Like no matter what army that you have. That's just how you deal with Doc. Marathi is eventually going to run out of gas. It just is a matter of like how much she takes with her. But she's going to die if you're using her properly over the course of the game, or table your opponent before that happens. But the bow snakes is what you have to focus on. So we both knew that, so we're both trying to focus on the bow snakes. I went to centerboard because he made me go first. I just went up the middle. Was able to get 20 of his witch elves that were in front of the bow snakes. I killed those with the Shadow Queen, and was fortunate enough to only take 2 wounds in that sequence. So it gave me an extra turn of Marathi, which wound up being pretty critical as the game went on. And then moved up with the bow snakes, shot his bow snakes, did quite a bit of damage. I think got him down to 8 or 9 bow snakes. So first turn went pretty ideally, and it was on whatever that mission was, barrel foray with the 6. So I was able to kind of take control of the center of his deployment zone and push him away to the side. And what I was trying to do was prep for that turn 2 roll off, and like I wanted the roll off, and I wound up getting it after he took his turn, and it let me burn his center aboard. And on his turn 1, he had shifted his army kind of into the corner of his deployment zone, away from the Shadow Queen. So after the first turn, I was really happy with the board state because I shifted him away from the center of his deployment zone, and then burned the center of his. He was able to pick some points up out of my deployment zone because he brought down his life takers, made a 9-inch charge, and picked that extra point up for having more objectives. So that's a really hard one to get on turn 1 for my army, but he had a little bit more mobility, so he picked that point up. He wasn't able to score his battle tactic because he picked Ferocious Advance and then realized that he couldn't run the units that he needed to get the battle tactic, and then also put a game plan together that would allow him to kill enough. So he decided to kill instead of get the battle tactic. And so he made up that 1 point of difference. So I think I had like a 1-point swing on turn 1. But then I got turn 2, burned his center, got that extra point, and then picked up another battle tactic. Kind of kept away from Marathi, put 3 more wounds on her, so she's at 6. And then on his turn, kind of similar, he like went around the side and kind of started to creep towards my back right side of my deployment zone, and then just kept re-engaging the bow snakes with Marathi every turn. So every turn, and that prayer was coming in clutch because he was re-engaging and getting lots of wounds through, but I was just able to pass like a lot of 5+ rerollable Feeling of Pains. It just kept my bow snakes in the game, and I kept chipping at his Marathi every time she charged. So he was trading 3 wounds on Marathi or a re-engagement into my bow snakes, but he was also keeping my Marathi pinned with his little Marathi. So that was kind of the dynamic that was in the center of the board. We're fighting for center of the board with our Shadow Queens. And his wound up dying a turn earlier because I only took 2 turns, or took 2 wounds on that first turn, which wound up letting me deal with his witch elves on the other side of his deployment zone later in the game, which was it let me pick some points up on turn 3, I believe. This turn 3 when I picked up the points off the left-hand side of his deployment zone, and then he played for the double. It was a very smart move on his part. He played for the double on turn 3, where he ran all of his army into the center onto the right side of my deployment zone, and picked up that objective, and then won the turn roll off. So he got a full rotation of having more hold 1, hold 2, hold more, which got him. It closed the gap to where we were. I think there was a point of difference at that point. I was up by a point. And then that was his play, very strong play by him. And then I was able to barely eke a win out because the way that he had rotated around to the side of my objective, he was also trying to pressure my army into the corner from there because we were only on turn 4. We weren't on turn 5 yet, so he couldn't play just for the win. He was trying to prep himself for more points on turn 5. and then also trying to get my grand strategy. But it opened up Slay the Warlord for me, and I was able to barely get his Medusa off the board, and then I won the. I think I won the turn roll off, and we talked it out from there, and I wound up winning by a point. And it's like I said a few times now, but it's my favorite game, Age of Sigmar. Lots of dice rolls mattered, and I didn't. Like I tried to recap the high points of the game, but there are so many other little breakpoints that happen, like spells going off or not going off, denial of spells going off or not going off, attack sequences, save sequences. Like there was so much more going on that like I've thought about a lot. I've replayed that game a lot in my head, and it's hard to like you want to say that there's mistakes somewhere, but it's hard to like describe what was a mistake in there because the sequences were so intricate and there's so many dice rolls that mattered. But yeah, great opponent. Can't wait to play him again. And I think he wound up in second place. So
Nice.
I just talked a lot, vomited a lot of noise into the microphone.
No, that's good.
What about did you already talk about yours, Brian? Your game 5?
No, I had Dan Norris, Archaon into BCR, which was a pretty good matchup for me, especially being able to. I played the army. I know what its threat ranges are, so I just basically deployed out of his threat range, took the turn, and then gave him the turn, and basically he was able to get 1 in range, which I didn't think I even gave him 1, but he had like an 11-inch charge that he could have made into my Vanguard. He rolled it and failed that charge, and then I had my Demon Prince garrisoned right in a giant terrain piece right in the middle of the board, which basically shut the board down for him. But I knew I had the double, or I had the double at that point. So I got aggressive with Archaon, went up and killed his Frost Lord and on Stonehorn, and then the Vanguard killed another Stonehorn, and then on my following turn, at that point, his Metal Cruncher's gone. There's nothing that can threaten Archaon. He had -2 rend at best, and Archaon was at a 2+ save, ignoring -2 rend and rerolling ones. So Archaon went into a Thunder Tusk and a Stonehorn Beast Rider. And then my Marauders went into a Thunder Tusk on the other side and killed it. And Archaon, it was funny, like everybody was there, like Hunter and Zach and I think Kyle was over there, and it's like, are you going to Slayer Kings this guy? And I was like, oh, I don't have rerolls. And then I just rolled the dice and Slayer Kings the fucking Husker or something like. So I killed in turn 1, in my turn 1 and my turn 2, I had killed all of his Stonehorns and all of his Thunder Tusks. And the Sorcerer Lord had gotten into the Butcher and chopped him up and burned one of his objectives, and there was nothing left at that point. It was just game over. But it was a fun game. I mean, the first 4 and 1 of my life, I thought I was going to be stuck at 3 and 2 with just getting bad matchups. I'm pretty sure I'm not
through for sure. Like
3 and 2 sure Elo hell. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do any better than that or better than 3 and 2 at Austin. But I'm taking a list, or at least I'm hoping to, if I can get it done in time. Taking a list that I think is super fun, and I think I'm actually more confident in this list, and most people probably call me crazy. I'm more confident in this list into the current meta than I am with Archaon into the current meta, because Archaon just doesn't get things off the board fast enough. Like, it doesn't deal well with Giants. It doesn't deal well with another matchup that we're going to talk about here soon. Like, just doesn't. Like,
what they call Wind Spirits? Kind of bad.
Wind Spirits, man. I mean, I led that entire game. I just ran out of gas because people think Wind Spirits don't do any damage. They just have movement shenanigans. They have a shit ton of damage. And it's -2 rend on everything, like D3 damage, 2 damage. Like, just a decent amount of damage they put out. Plus, they're doing mortal wounds every time they fly over you, and
Yeah, sure.
they're just. We'll get to that game. It's crazy. Like we'll go to an event that Evan is more excited about.
Well, first we can talk about the.
Hold on, we gotta talk about placings, dude. Chris Creech went fucking third place, dude. Houston in general dominated all the other cities. Y'all are slacking.
No,
Yeah,
JTJ. It was
no. Chris Creech got third overall.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Well, they added in soft scores.
Oh, I see.
This is soft scores, the one we're looking at now, or
no? This is
the BCP. So Chris Schelling and JTJ will be ahead of him on battle points, but he got third place overall. But they did good too. They played a game they drew on table 2, so they did really good. They both did really good. They're both Houston boys also. But yeah, Houston in general dominated. The other cities need to get better. Or it's just gonna be a repeat, all purple, all over the map. Sad.
I mean, I was the 2020 Texas Masters champion. I mean,
we still haven't got to your belt. Everyone thinks it's a joke. We're gonna get a patch for your thing, dude. That's a real thing.
I mean, people. I get it. We stopped keeping score, but I was winning when we stopped keeping score. And if we're in the middle of the game and we run out of time, and I'm winning, who wins? Me. I'm winning. So I won it.
You got like 3 things.
Who wants me, dude? But now we can talk about Evan's shining moment now. You know,
shining.
We could talk about New Orleans. Go on. We've been going on about this.
No. We still got I was gonna shout out to Justin. He plays top 10. Andrew plays top 10. Brian, of course. Chris, Jacob.
The event in general was awesome. Like everybody who came out, you got a lot of new faces that weren't really on the tournament scene in 2019 that came out and did really well. Like Justin and Chris and
Best Chris
Andrew.
Award.
Yeah, and then Andrew, who has basically facilitated Age of Sigmar play in Houston for a long time, and kept our group getting better and growing. And he came out and killed it. Went 4-1. I'm lucky. I'm glad I didn't get paired into him. I wanted no part of that double Bastillodon salamander. It's like it was built to kill up. Yeah, it would have murdered me. I wanted no damn part of it. And Kyle did great with the event. I mean, I have 0 complaints other than getting paired into my dude on fucking game 4. Like, that should have been game 5. But it's whatever. I mean, if any of you guys are college football fans, it basically was the championship round. It's kind of like Alabama and Georgia in 2012 in the SEC championship. Whoever won that got to go murder Notre Dame for the national championship that year.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. If Pat Roberts is Notre Dame.
I'm 100%
he's pretty good too. But now we can talk about Evan Miller's New Orleans Open. We've been waiting for his shining moment. Tell us all about your AOS Shorts, newest AOS Shorts.
Meta Watch. Yeah.
Meta Watch Superstar. Dude, 2 top 5s. Destruction, best in Destruction and best in Chaos. We got to go for best in Order at what's it called? If you want to, or
Austin.
best in Death too.
Yeah.
You can do that. What else are we missing here?
Oh God.
Just
stop.
In general,
stop.
Great player of Age of Sigmar.
I think the crowning achievement was when I went up to the TOs because I met him in Orlando and then got to see him here, and I went up to him. I said, I just lost a Beast of Chaos, and they handed me a drink ticket. And the other guy goes, I think you need to give him a second one for losing the Beast of Chaos. And that was probably like the biggest moment of that tournament.
More on that later, dude. But who wants to go first with their games?
Yeah.
And you maxed out. You didn't get to talk much about the last one.
Cool. Yours, Evan?
Oh, me?
Yeah, go
yeah.
for it.
So,
Yeah.
are we doing by game, like game one, and then?
Yeah.
Game one, I fought a Archaon list, which I was kind of low key shitting myself because I had just lost a. I've only done one practice game with the list that I had, and I had just lost to Brian with that almost a very similar list. It wasn't exactly the same, but Archaon and the crew, like obviously it's similar set. And but then the player I was fighting was like, "Oh yeah, this is my first Age of Sigmar tournament ever," and I was like, "Oh really? That's kind of cool, I guess." Like I was like, all right, well, I mean, let's see what happens. Because he's like, "This is also my first 3.0 game." I was like, all right, well, good luck
Nice
to
to
you.
have your first game of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I
You're like, okay, cool.
yeah,
Now
I,
eat the mall crusher, sir.
yeah, I made him go first, and there wasn't an objective on the board, so because it was the whatever the Star Strike one is.
Veins of Gur.
Yeah, Veins of Gur. And so I had known that this one was worth the most points based on how they scored for these tournaments. And I knew that this one was going to be the deciding factor of who placed in the top 5. So I was like, okay, well, hey, let's go ahead and I made him go first because I was less drops than him. He moves all his stuff up, doesn't get anything in, and he actually moved up his Corn Demon Prince. I had to remind him to make sure to activate the ability because he forgot. And then my turn, I went in, or I kind of played a little defensively because I didn't want to just bum rush everything, and then it ends up all the objectives go on the other side. So I just kind of, and I was also worried about Archaon Slayer Kings because he did get all his buffs up. Went in and just kind of hit some of his stuff that he was screening with, but mostly kept. But what I did do was I actually went to try to kill his because he moved Archaon way over to one side, and so while he was doing that, he left his Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Manticore completely exposed, and my Rogue Idol Mighty Destroyered up, and then charged and killed it. And I chose to, I think I chose Bring It Down or something like that because I was like pretty certain I could get into it, and I put all the buffs on him and just one shot it. Like because I also got the Hex spell off from the Gobsprek. He has a spell from Lore of Swamp where you can remove a ward save. So I used the movement spell to move him up in the hero phase, then did the spell cast to take away his ward save, then moved him back in the movement phase. He's like, "Oh, so my Amulet Destiny's gone?" I was like, "Yeah, it's gone until the end of the turn." And then the Rogue Idol did like 20-something damage and killed him.
Got him.
Yep, and then we went into the roll-off, and I won the roll-off, which was pretty brutal because he lost everything except for Archaon that turn. And then, but it was still kind of close. The terrain was messing with him because of how they ruled it as far as the height distance and stuff. So his Varangard like couldn't squeeze into a certain spot, and his Varangard pretty much never got to do anything all game because the Maw Crusher went around and killed them instantly. And then I tied down his Archaon with some just like I think I threw the Ard Boys at him, but then on top of that, I got the spell off from Gobsprek that removed an attack from all attack profiles from every unit within 6, and it actually went through Archaon's 4 magic negate. So I was pretty confident he without the rerolls because his wizard was gone, ocular vision was gone, and pretty much I was like, okay, unless he just rolls like boxcars, he's not getting Slayer Kings off, and he almost did still going into the bottom of turn 2. And then he double turned me, but he ended up losing Archaon on that turn. So the game was pretty much over, and I just he had nothing left, and I was like, okay, well let's count it out for the score, and I ended up scoring 57 points compared to 9, I think. So it wasn't if I think it showed the skill floor level between his list was very similar in terms of the composition to what Brian's was. And Brian, I think you 3-turned me. I think the game was over by turn 3. versus like with him, he had nothing left on the board by turn 3. So, but yeah, it was pretty fun. We seemed to enjoy it. He actually knew of Harambe's Heroes. He said he watches our podcast. So if you're watching, hey,
Sick. We're famous, dude.
Yeah. Everyone's asking for our dice. Like, I think we need to buy like that. Yeah, that was probably the coolest part of the entire tournament. Was just how recognizable we were.
We are also wearing biker vests.
Yeah, of course. But I mean,
Gorilla
yeah.
fire.
I would mention our club, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you guys are the ones with the podcast," and it's like, "Yeah, that is us actually." Like,
oh, you're one of them Harambes. Huh?
I was doing marketing all weekend, man. I was like, even the TOs and stuff. Like, one guy, Chuck, I don't know if he watches this, but man, that dude is like fucking hilarious to talk to, and he's always talking about our club and stuff to other people. So
that's badass.
Yeah. But all right, that's it.
What did you get game 1, Gavin?
It played against Feck. So he was a little newer. He's trying to get into competitive play. So we had we talked a lot about intent before the game, and I reminded him of a lot of his rules as we went along in the game, just because he hadn't played a lot of 3.0. So we had it was fairly competitive because of the way, like you were mentioning earlier, the objectives fall. They all fell in a line on the right side.
Oh, nice.
So that favored his army a little more, I think, because it let him I had to consolidate my whole army in front of his threats. So he didn't have to split up his army, had more shit. It probably would be more beneficial for me if the objectives had fallen not in a line. But that's how they fell. And but with a lot of the interactions between Beast of Chaos, the specific army that I was playing in, his army, and I'll kind of explain how the army worked in general as we go on, is very different from normal Beast of Chaos. Like, people play with Bulgors and go for damage and other things, where I basically had a Khorne Demon Prince to dragnet whatever my opponent had, and then a really brutally damaging aura of about 18 inches, about 18 inches of threat that was just all based in mortal wounds and debuffing your army, and just in general, it's really bad to be in front of that Beast of Chaos army if you aren't able to get into combat because of the Demon Prince. And that's kind of how the game went. He stalled out in front of my banners, and I did a lot of mortal wounds to his Terrorgeist and his flares. What I was doing is kind of dealing with one threat at a time, and then whatever I wasn't going to deal with for the turn, I had Hailstorm on. So first turn, I Hailstormed his Terrorgeist, so half move, half charge, half run from the spell, and then half run, half charge from Demon Prince means he can't get into combat with his Terrorgeist. So, I think he screamed at something, but didn't do any combat damage, which is pretty crucial for a Terrorgeist. You're looking to do a lot of combat damage with that model. But I was able to kill, between the banners and 10 Zangors charging, I killed 6 of his crit flares and took the objective that landed in the center. And then the next set of objectives fell, and I won the turn roll off and made him go because the Terrorgeist was locked up. And he was like, well, I'm going to teleport over here and try to make a charge. But it was in the Khorne Demon Prince aura, so you can't make a 9-inch charge with half your charge. So he kind of marooned his flares on the side, and his Terrorgeist was still tied up on the center objective. And then I went and killed the flares on the side and reapplied Hailstorm on the Terrorgeist again. And then we rolled into the next turn, and I won that roll off, took the turn, killed his Terrorgeist, and the board state was kind of resolved in a way to where we talked the game out. But I wound up winning 40 something, maybe 40 to 32. It's still very close because he was scoring objectives, and my army wasn't able to move. I couldn't move a bunch of his army at one time. I really had to pick at it, so it didn't let me accumulate a lot of points over the course of the game. But I was able to win game 1 against Feck with the that terrible Beast of Chaos Alatome that no one thinks can win games. That's how my first game went.
Yeah, that spell lore is deceptively good.
Yeah, for sure. No one knows what it does either because everyone assumes the army's terrible. So I start to tell people what it does. And they're like, "What? What? It does what?" And like, yeah, well, and there'll be more later about the spell lore. But that was how the first game went.
I forgot to mention my Wargog stared 8 Chaos Warriors to death before killing himself. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what that face is here, for anyone wondering. That's my Wargog Prophet General staring down. He ended 3 games. Well, I guess he ended 4 games, but he won me 3 games and lost me 1. So, but how about you, Brian?
I had a guy named Zach out of Jacksonville, Florida. I guess he apparently he got 3rd place at the Orlando Open and came up, and that's who I had on game 1. And he came in really confident. Apparently, he was on like a 28-game win streak. Didn't know that I had a pre-wrap L that I was going to give to him at the end of the game that he could open up. So, I mean, my teleport had him nervous. So instead of like spreading out and blocking it off or whatever, he clustered in the corner with all 3 of. I got Gargants, and he had a Gatebreaker and 2 Krakens, and he's playing Taker Tribe. And he had a 3-man unit of Man Crushers, and he screened out the 3 Megas with the unit of Man Crushers, and the objective dropped. Well, I would have chose to take the turn because of the way he was set up right there. I felt like it was my best shot to get those 3 Man Crushers off the board. And the objective dropped on that side, right in the middle, right in front of everything. So I teleported up my Marauders and then moved up Demon Prince and all kind of stuff right there in the middle on that objective to hold it. Made the charge, killed 2 Man Crushers and put like 8 wounds on it. But because the way he had deployed, he wasn't able to, and the Khorne Demon Prince being there also, he wasn't able to get him out of that combat. So I ended up killing the Man Crushers with the By My Will, and then he made I guess I could have redeployed to block him out. He made a play that I didn't think he could make with movement and took the objective back from me, which was annoying. But he got it. And then, so he didn't get much done, though. He banged on the Marauders, and the Marauders killed the Man Crusher and killed that last Man Crusher and put a couple of wounds on the Gargants. But they had already done my thought process with them is I was going to trade them and then block off enough of the board turn 1 that he could only engage with 1 mega, which was the case. He'd give me 1 mega by itself for Archaon and the Baron Guard to beat down. So got the Man Crusher off the board. It was my turn. Killed his Gatebreaker with the 5-up Feel No Pain. So Archaon and the Baron Guard chopped him down, killed him, and then on his turn, he came up and took the objective back again. So we were back and forth on the objective because, Megas just walk on it, especially from Taker. They just walk on it and have the objective no matter how many models you have around it. Especially with my list, like, it doesn't have a lot of bodies. So he walks up, takes that objective, and then we go into turn 3. I already knew he wasn't going to double me, and then the objectives dropped all on the left side of the board. So I teleported my Sorcerer Lord over to his back objective and took my Marauder Horseman over to mine and kept mine with my Marauder Horseman. And basically, Archaon and the Vanguard just went and chopped up. And then the Demon Prince made his way over there by the Sorcerer Lord eventually and kind of locked that objective down. And the Vanguard and Archaon just handled that Kraken Eater to the point. I left them over. He had to leave 1 Kraken Eater over on the objective because he knew that he needed to rack up a lot of points in this one too. So having to sit on that one objective over there on the side allowed me to engage one at a time on man crushers. And if you let Archaon and Vanguard engage one Gargant at a time, one Mega Gargant at a time, they'll just kill it. Like Archaon was leaving them on about 6 wounds, and then the Vanguard were finishing them off. Like, so it was a good game. I think I ended with like 40 points or something like that, 43, something like that. But I mean, it was a close game. I think it was like 43-28 or something like that. Because once he took that right objective, I was kind of okay with getting the win. But him racking up some points on that objective, if he had to keep a man crusher sitting there, if he would have ever came off of it, I would have just took it back. So I racked up points on that one, and I was feeling pretty good going into game 2, and I didn't realize how they were scoring game 2, and then I won game 2 on turn 3, which didn't allow me to get those extra battle tactics, because apparently the way they scored it, like, you stop immediately. You don't count any battle tactics any further than that. So I didn't understand that scoring going into it, because I was like, well, I can get the rest of my battle tactics, because winning immediately, which is weird. I didn't understand why they ruled this way, but getting a major victory, whoever has all 4 of the objectives immediately gets a major victory, but it doesn't say anywhere that the game ends there. So it seems like there would still be play for secondaries.
I think it's so that your opponent doesn't somehow get all 4 of them too. Because you could capture them for a turn and then lose all of them, and then
but the major objective is decided. The major victory is decided then, since they were using battle tactics as a tiebreaker in the higher brackets.
Yeah,
it seemed like they would have just let you play those out.
Andrew said it was very generous of you to give that L out, because but considering you kept 2 of them for yourself.
I did. I wasn't trying, but we will get into those things. But yeah, y'all can go into game 2. I won't go too deep into mine yet.
Game 2 was
your perspective. You want to talk about it?
It was interesting. I think so everyone knows, Gavin and I got matched up game 2, and it honestly sucked getting that matchup so early in the tournament. There were 30-something winners in that game 1, so the chances of us getting matched up was pretty low. And then I think the objective, or the battle plan, where it was winner take all and you only get 1 point, was kind of I think it was really weird, right? Because it wasn't just like any of the other games. It was like you're racking up points, and so in this one, and it didn't matter until turn 3, anyways. So it was one of those things where, from my perspective, it was better to just play defensively, and that's what I was originally trying to do. But because I saw Gavin's deployment was just a big death ball with all his important stuff in the back, and rightfully so. And really, I didn't have anything to deal with, like have enough punching power to get into the back line and kill stuff. So I kind of sat back, and then Gavin got all his spells off, and I failed all my unbinds, which was beautiful. And he did some pretty decent amount of mortal wounds too. So I think it kind of spooked me a little bit. That was like, I can't be sitting here taking all these mortal wounds from a range when I myself don't really have any way to stop him. So then, like, we just kind of stared at each other turn 1, and then turn 2, I won the roll off, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I'm gonna be a destruction player. I'm gonna smash into his shit, and either I table him or like we just have this long drawn out fight. Because my hope was that the Rogue Idol and the Maw Crusher could survive till turn 3, like that. Hopefully till the end of turn 3. If I either won the roll off, I would take I would basically take it and then go ahead and take. Or I'm sorry, I would go second regardless. Turn 3, because I was hoping I could take the one objective he was sitting on, claim the other 3, and he wouldn't be able to make it in time, and basically force his hand where it was like a lose-lose situation. But it didn't work out that way. I did kill a lot of his shit. I even made it through the charges, even though he had the Corn Demon Prince buff up, which I thought was pretty good. I think I had a 50% chance of failing on those. And did some pretty good damage. Killed his Corn Demon Prince. Killed like what, I think 12 or 13 of the whatever those Beastmen or Beasts of Chaos are. Zangors. And then yep. And then that was kind of all I did. And then it was his turn, and he slowly whittled away at my stuff, and then he won the roll off turn 3. But by that point, like he had already killed my Rogue Idol, and my Maw Crusher was almost dead. Like I think it was on like 1 or 2 wounds left, so he was able to get the max points by taking it out, which it did keep him down a turn, but it wasn't enough to stall him out. And I ended up I think the Rogue Idol did pretty bad on his saves, and the Maw Crusher just took way too much attacks. Like it was like just huge amounts of mortals, and then every spell he got off again, so I could not do anything to do it. And we were, I think points wise, we were actually neck and neck until turn 4, I think, and then I couldn't keep up. I was down, and then with the speed that he was able, because everything he had run and charge, so he was able to, even if I retreated my Arb boys to try to like stall him out, then he would have been able to still catch him. Because it was like 15-inch movement, and then they can also charge, and they have a +1 or something, +2 to charge, I think. So it was very unlikely that I could have done it, and I banked everything on one objective or one battle tactic to try to tie it up, and I just couldn't get it. So it was really good though, really really close. Probably one of the closest games I've ever had.
Yeah, it's very close.
And except for the Wargog Prophet, my Lord and Savior, like. I was like, man, I was on a high because I had been prepping for this moment, and the Wargog was going to stare down a bunch of Zangors and do quite a bit of damage. And he was literally, I think it was like a centimeter off from being in range of his general, which would have been, or I'm sorry, your Shaggoth. Yeah, it was like literally a centimeter off, and I was like, Jesus, like of course it had to be a centimeter off, because I think that could have changed it quite a bit too, but. Then, so I was like, all right, let's just put on the Zangors, and rolled a 1. So I do d6 to myself, did 5 mortals, and I saved like 1 or 2, and then got the mortal wound off, did a mortal to Zangors, he saved it, and then I did another 5 mortals to myself, and my general died. And we just kind of stared at each other and were like, well, that just happened.
You're like, no, you can't get Slay.
Yeah, I was like, well, it was my plan all along. You can't get Slay the Warlord. My general's dead.
Like, yeah, I guess I can't. But that was interesting.
A lot of people are already crying that the Wargog Prophet's too OP, but I don't give a shit. Like, too OP. I've been putting up with your guys' shit for years. I'm not gonna fucking take this. You can't take this away from me now. So, how about you, Gavin? What'd you see?
That was fun. It's a real close game. I agree that in hindsight, like 2020 hindsight, I don't know, like, if it was the best. It's maybe a turn early as far as like going in and trying to crush onto that objective.
Yeah.
And then you kind of got bogged down. It was like the sequence was, in hindsight, it looks like a bad sequence, but it's like it was a lot of 50-50 rolls. Like, so you go in. And I think you got the damage that you're probably happy with the damage you got for that turn, but then you're it's coming down to a roll off, which you had priority on, so it's like a 58-42 like lean. So like you're kind of okay with gambling that you have like a lean on a roll off because your win ties, but you just didn't win. I think you rolled like a 1.
Yeah, it was like guaranteed. I lost unless you roll 1.
Yeah, and it was so, and like that let me deal with your 2 big threats in the army. I was also getting Savage Dominion off every turn and making Gaussprack eat brutes, which was funny. That spell was
That was
hilarious.
awful.
Like, it's such a hilarious spell in this meta where like everyone's on monsters and a lot of them have low bravery. Stay tuned for what Savage Dominion does to Gargant players. He was displeased. But Gaussprek, yeah, he ate the 5 brutes over the course of the game.
Yep.
Like without me getting in the
Killed my own
with
models. Yeah.
them.
I was like, oh,
So
okay.
that was funny. I got like quite a bit of the. It's like a surprising amount of like little D3 mortal wounds. Like they had like Savage Bolt, Strangle Thorns, had Arcane Bolt.
Yeah,
What else?
like
There's
4
D3
different bolt spells. I was
There's
like,
a lot of like little like mortal wound sources in that army that will stack up over time if you get them all off. But yeah, that was the Herdstone was actually real important too because it was keeping me from having to take battle shock, and then it also let me deal with that Maw Crusher too because it was at -1 save.
Yep.
So he wasn't quite as unkillable as he should have been.
and you
That's
got
kinda
the
what stood
roar.
out to me.
That too.
Yeah, I roared him. That mission really favored me. I think like most missions in the rest of that packet, he would have been more of a lean towards your army because you could have just crushed me in my deployment zone. Whereas that one, I was able to play in a way like that let me whittle you down and not get punished for it, like
Yeah,
objective wise.
I agree.
So it was very important. Yeah, dude, Beast Chaos 2-0. By the way, there's 3 other Beast Chaos players there. Combined, they had 1 win in between all of them. So my book's overpowered. Yeah, the Beast Chaos overpowered.
It was
I
at
had 4
75th place, 77th place, and then 4th place overall.
There's another one who he won 1 game. I think we all kind of like chatted. They're really good people, but Beast of Chaos kind of get this rap as a bad army. I get it because if you're playing Gores and you're playing Gores like a traditional army, like you don't do a lot of damage and you just die. So, like, I'd really encourage people to explore the strengths of your book, right? Like, there's more in that book than just Gores. And I get if you just want to play Gores, I get that. But you can't paint the whole book with the same brush if you're just going to focus on a few units and be like, these units are bad. So this book is bad. Like, no, there are units in the book that are bad, and there are other options that people don't want to use that are okay. Like it's not a world-beating book by any means, but there's more there than nothing, which is the general consensus, right? But 3 people combined 1 win, and I had 4 times as many wins as that. So whatever that means, it makes me feel good though.
You know what it means.
Yeah, it means I'm a decent Age of Sigmar player. That's what it means. But yeah, that was our game 2.
Yeah, very close.
Brian, who'd you play? Who'd you play?
I got a newer guy out that was playing a very similar list to mine. I think he ran a Footlord and
that's right. You played like the Archeon, not a
Archeon Mirror Match. It was similar. I mean, he was running the 20 block, which is becoming more standard. It's that 20 block of Chaos Warriors with Siege Mark. But he didn't have a hero near him, so they weren't rerolling ones. So we had to get it figured out in the beginning how they were going to rule Dark Prophecy with both of us having access to it. And
that is interesting.
Yeah, so what they ruled was if it happened, if one of those abilities was happening in a turn, in a player turn, then it would be whoever's player turn it went activated first, and then so then whoever was on, whoever's turn it wasn't, but then theirs would activate. It's very weird. But because that sequence happens outside of a player turn, it comes down to a roll-off, and whoever wins the roll-off, theirs activates first, and then whoever... So really, if you rolled a 4+ on that, you're looking to lose that roll-off.
Which is crazy. It's like so stupid. Mm-hmm. You're just doing a regular roll-off, but the lower one goes first.
And I outdropped him, so I was like, okay, well, you take the turn, and let's see how it goes. He was deployed in a way where he really couldn't buff anything. It was weird, the deployment that he took. his Vanguard were at a position. His Archon was a little far back for my taste, which basically I knew that nothing he had could threaten me. So he did his Dark Prophecy roll, and then he moved very defensively, which indicated to me like, oh, he didn't win that roll. So I didn't even do a Dark Prophecy roll. I was like, by the way that he deployed, I think I'm getting a double off of his roll. Or not deployed, by the way that he did his movement phase in turn one. He basically just brought, he had 5 Chaos Knights and 20 Warriors, and he brought his Chaos Knights up and kind of screened for his Warriors on one of his objectives on the right side. So I took Archaon there, and I took, and then I had my Sorcerer Lord, and I put him 18 inches outside of that unit of Warriors, or touching them just inside 18 inches, so I could do the Winds of Chaos or Whispers of Chaos, whichever wins I think it is, on his War Scroll to try to get some mortal wounds through on them. And went up and I put Archaon into his unit of Warriors and just started banging on them. I knew that if I was going to get that big block of Warriors off of the table, and that unit with a teleport could swing the game, so I needed to get that 20 blocks, 40 wounds, I needed to get it off the board. So I started banging on it with Archaon. His Archaon was all the way on the other side of the board, and I was able to put my Demon Prince in there. And even if he did get the double, I basically had everything in my army out of his Archaon's threat range with a Demon Prince sitting there with Bloodslick Ground up. But I told him, after I did the turn, I was like, I don't know what you got hidden under that cup, but from the way that you move, I'm pretty sure you're giving me the turn. And that's why I didn't roll Dark Prophecy. I was pretty sure you already gave it to me, and I didn't want to run the risk of giving it back to you. So he took the turn, or he showed the dice, and I got the double. So Archaon finished off the Knights, and between the mortals from the Sorcerer Lord and Archaon, I got the Warriors off the board. And that turn, I did do my Dark Prophecy, and I got a 4-up on that one, and he did his too. And then took the turn, killed all the Warriors. His Archaon kind of repositioned. Oh, he actually left his Archaon because he took Monstrous Takeover as his battle tactic. So he left. The only objective that his Archaon could get to was the one in his back left corner that he was sitting on. So he had to leave his Archaon stationary. So again, it just let me chew through enough of his army. And then we revealed our Dark Prophecy rolls. He rolled a 2, I rolled a 4. Both of our rolls were giving it to me, so it didn't require a roll-off. And at that point, we just kind of talked about it because I could teleport my Marauders over, and I did. We rolled it out to see if the Marauder teleport went off. I teleported my Marauders over to the objective that his Archaon was sitting on. And his Archaon was sitting on it, but it was also like 4 inches or 5 inches behind it. So it allowed me to actually teleport right onto the objective, or at least in range of it, to get more models on there. So I just took the objective and won the game on that turn because I had killed everything on his side that was sitting on the objective. And we kind of just talked it out from there. That was where I found out that objective was worth, that game was only worth 1 point. And if you won, the game immediately ended. So, but he was a great guy. He's very new. I got him added on Facebook now. He's going to get into our Discord, start learning ways to maneuver that army a little better. Great guy from Auburn. It was funny. His whole family was there, met his wife and everybody. And
yep.
We're big rivals, because I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. They're a big Auburn fan. We were talking about the game coming up. Just that's a huge part of it is meeting new people and adding them into your network, whether it just be through, social media and things like this, and we only ever meet up at these tournaments. So looking forward to helping him learn. And he asked me, he said, was it my inexperience or what made you know that I had the double turn? I was like, that I didn't have the double turn. I was like, you just didn't move like someone who had the double. And also, if you had, even if you had the double, I was in position to not get threatened by anything in your army, even with the double. So wasn't that big of a deal for me. But he was really good guy, from my neck of the woods. And We had a good time. I hope I don't remember. I didn't talk to him about how the rest of his tournament went, but I hope he did well. But he just caught a bad matchup. I mean, you don't want an Archeon matchup when you're new with Archeon with somebody who's been playing him for. I've been almost a year now, probably a little over a year. I've been in Archeon,
Yeah.
so I was able to manage that game very well.
Cool. My game 3 was over in like 25 minutes. I played Empty Throne Vanguard on Tectonic Interference, and so my whole game plan is predicated on that. Or Demon Prince not letting you charge, but Empty Throne Vanguard, they can just they pile in 6 and bypass that, which I knew. I took first turn and kind of sectioned him off of one of the side objectives, like just trying to get a points lean and hopefully play for the turn roll off. But he got into the center of my army, took the center of the board like real hard, and then killed what I had on center objective, and then piled in it to where he didn't really get into what was behind those units, but he got into them enough to pull them into combat, which means that they can't retreat. But that was his first turn. Picked up points, equalized the point spread for the most part, and then won the turn roll off, and I was like, he debated on giving me the turn or not because of how the board state was, but he took the turn and then killed a lot of stuff and had jammed up my army in my deployment zone. So at that point, I was like, he's made the correct calls. He played well with what he has. Like I was like, I think I'm playing for battle tactics, and I think we can talk this game out. And he agreed, and that was how we resolved the game. Anthony Trittinelli, I think was his name, super good guy. I know he didn't play in ACO when I had Karajaran, but had a real nice little back and forth game. Seems very knowledgeable and has a reputation for doing very well. So from what I could tell, reputation's earned. Seems like a very strong player with a very strong army. So I had known that Beast of Chaos was going to be susceptible to that. Like, I knew that I was probably just going to lose to some things if it was piloted well. And I finally ran into that. So, I wasn't too displeased. Well, I think 2-1 was kind of, I was hopeful that I could go 3-0 with Beast of Chaos because I'm always hopeful I can win every game that I play. But 2-1 was kind of where my expectation was for day one. So, kind of hit that mark and lost to one of the player/army combinations there that I knew I was going to have a tough time with, and the mission made it the mission just polarized it even more because it was a fight for the center, and I just don't fight well in the center of the map with Vanguard when the objectives scale. I would like to play that matchup on the 4 objective mission. I would wonder how that matchup would go differently than Tectonic Interference, but that's how it went. 2-1. That's
cool.
my game 3. How'd your stuff go?
I actually fought the guy Brian fought last turn or last game, so another Archeon list.
You got a double dose of Harambe.
Yeah, it was like he's like, man, those Harambe players, they came here to play. I was like, oh yeah, I lost to one last game too. I was like, but now you're fighting another one, so I was like, he's like, I was the only one that didn't have a vest on, and he's just like, you could just tell he's like, okay. And so we play, we set it up, another typical Archeon list, and when I told him what my army did, because I don't think he had fought, it's certainly not the new book, but I think there wasn't much experience he had fighting Big Wa in general. Once I told him what Gobsprak did, he stuck his Chaos Sorcerer Lord in the corner of the map with the 20 block of Chaos Warriors, but they were so far back that he had to get that teleport off, because if he didn't, those guys are kind of stuck there. like because they don't move
And I
very
think that was
fast.
some bad advice that I gave him. I was like, if you run into anything that can stop your teleport, you need to at least attempt it because you were never even in the in an area to attempt it against me. I was like, stick that guy in the corner and do your
Well,
teleport from there.
the thing was
He immediately applied
because
that.
the range is what, like 18 on the spell or 24?
Well,
It's
it's
12.
very short for 12.
Wholly within.
Mm-hmm.
It's wholly within 12 for the teleport.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sure.
Because he stuck everything in the corner because the Gauss wreck I told him he had the 3d6 unbind, and so he put it in the corner and then he failed it anyways. So he's like, okay, well I just gotta take the objectives because I made him go first. So he ran the he auto sixed the Chaos Warriors up, but then he forgot to put the Chaos Sorcerer Lord behind them. He stuck him. He didn't move him at all, so that aura was outside the range now for the Zinch benefit. And then Archaon he put on one side instead of running in the middle, and then he like tagged it within the 6, and then he moved his Chaos Knights into the center. So then on my turn, I was within 12 of where he was because he put him right in the center of the board. So I just I fastened my Rogue Idol, and then I Mighty Destroyed the Rogue Idol, and I'm sorry, fastened the Maw Crusher. Then I Mighty Destroyed the Maw Crusher and the Rogue Idol and like some Art Boys or whatever. Got all of them in, and then the Rogue Idol in the movement phase retreated, and then piled in 3 in the combat phase, and tagged both Archaon and the Chaos Knights, because the Chaos Knights were I did what was it, Broken Ranks on the Chaos Knights, and then I also charged like 5 brutes into Archaon because I didn't want him piling into the Rogue Idol, even though the Rogue Idol had like +2 to his save and all that stuff. So the Rogue Idol killed all the Chaos Knights and then did some attacks into his Iron Golems and killed them. And then he killed the brutes. I think all but 1 brute. And then the Maw Crusher killed like I think 10 or no 8. Oh yeah, we ended up killing 12 out of the 20 Chaos Warriors. And I had enough bodies on that objective between the 5 Ard Boys and the Maw Crusher. I took I took 2 objectives, and then we did the roll off, and I got it. And then I killed. I think he didn't want to do I think he actually forgot to do the Dark Prophecy. So then on my turn, I went into it, killed them all again, and then all he had left after that was just Archaon, and Archaon was still stuck in combat with like a brute because I piled the brute into a way that he couldn't do anything. And then he killed the brute. We were going to turn 3. I won the roll off for that, and I'm like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna do Slay the Warlord, and everything moved over, and I full healthed him in 1 turn. And what happened was the Wargog got within 12 inches, and he did I think it was 6 mortals to him before he blew up. But I mean, I was like, I don't care at this point. And then the Maw Crusher ended up killing him because he didn't have. I roared at him, and so he didn't have any. The Rogue Idol roared at him, and then I Titanic dueled him with the Maw Crusher, and then the Maw Crusher ended up killing him. And he's like, okay, well I don't have anything left. So, and that was only on turn 3, so his entire army was gone, and we just called it there. So pretty good, pretty fun, game overall. I think I rolled really well, and his misplacement was off. That was the only thing that I was like, I felt like he played a little too passively with the Archaon. I felt like he put the Vanguard way too far back, and then he put Archaon on one flank instead of the center. When I felt like if he had him in the center, I would have had to play much more passively, because when he put it on one side, the Maw Crusher just went the other way, like on the other side, and killed all his stuff. Because I think the Maw Crusher does more to chaff than Archaon can do. in each combat phase, and so I was able to
yeah.
I was able to sweep his side, and then I had like +3 to my attacks, and by the time I got into Archaon, so it didn't. I think it worked well, but because I think one turn he actually got the extra point because of the tonic interference, but it just didn't. I feel like he was playing too passively because he was worried about the Maw Crusher when he should have been chasing the Maw Crusher. But yeah, that was my game 2 or 3.
My game 3, I got Joe Cryer with the 4 Wind Spirits.
Sounds like a fun game.
Preface it with saying that I think Joe Cryer's on the Team America. Excellent player, plays a ton. I don't think anyone else plays more than Joe Cryer. So he's also playing the list very well, but the list is like nightmarish for sure.
Yeah, if
Brian
you don't have the
describe
tools,
in detail.
yeah, I mean, if you don't have the tools to deal with it, like I forced him into a way, like at one point where my Marauders could get there, but it was the same turn that he had gotten. So just to start out, I took the turn, and I outdropped him, and I took the turn, and I rolled a double. So I rolled Dark Prophecy, and I had the turn, and so I pushed out on every objective, and I thought I was in a good position, and then those things started hero phase moving. I mean, shooting phase moving, and basically I had Archaon on the one that was big, and I didn't have much else there, I don't think. I think I had a couple of things, but the math worked out where he had all of them on there. He had all 4 on there and equaled 8 models and was able to take it away from me. And I think it was because there was a piece of terrain where I couldn't quite get all 3 Vanguard on there. I could only get like 1. And so it made it where I only had 7 models and he had 8 models on there. So he ended up stopping me from scoring that one on turn 1.
On your own turn.
And on my own turn, his movement took my objectives away from me. It's insane how those things work. And we were laughing about it. We were joking about it. I'm like, these things are ridiculous. And he's like, I know. I know the list is ridiculous, but it's legal, and it's had 4 opportunities to be FAQ'd, and they have it. So I'm going to play it until he's like, I was nervous coming here. I thought they were going to FAQ it before I got the list here. So we changed. So long story short, I got my battle tactic. I got 2 out of the 3 objectives, but because Wind Spirits get to move in the shooting phase, he took the important objective back away from me. And then he took his turn, and like everyone who thinks Wind Spirits don't do damage, you're crazy. They do a lot of damage. Yes, they have a lot of movement. That's a scary part of them, but they also do a lot of damage. But he wasn't able to take all the objectives away from me because they only count for 2 models. So he was able to get the important one. And through pile-ins, he was able to get some damage done and not take much damage. The way they work, they pile out, and they have like 2-inch range or 3-inch range, and then you can only pile in 1 inch towards them. And if you don't have 2-inch range weapons, your pile-in doesn't matter. So, but Archaon was able to get into one of them, beat it up pretty good, left it on 1 wound, I think, or he got into Severeth and did a bunch of damage to Severeth, but Severeth is hard to kill. So then I went into my turn, did what I could with his. I did my turn, and then he repositioned again. So once that repositioning thing started happening, it's kind of difficult to push them off of anything. And then he has 30 Sentinels back there blasting me too. So fighting for the objectives. We had a really tight game all the way up until turn 4. I was leading. I was staying ahead on points is what I knew. I had to stay ahead on objectives and make them play all over the board, but they're really good at playing all over the board. And we only had, and the tectonic interference was a tough one in that matchup because I would have to dedicate, and not knowing where the main objective was going to be, he could get there. And that turn where he positioned his wind spirits, I was able to kill 2 of them that turn, and I almost got the other 2, but that was the same turn that he had gotten. What is it? Solar eclipse? Is that what it is that makes you spend 2 CP?
Yep.
Yeah. So I couldn't buy my will my Marauders, not knowing that they were going to get in. So I didn't buy my will the Marauders until they were going to get in, and then he used the CP to all out defense Severeth, I think it was. Or he used the CP for the shooting attack. So he used the CP for Unleash Hell. So I rolled the die, the 2 up to get by my will on those Marauders, and rolled a 1, which really sucked. Rolling that one for by my will that turn, because I left the other 2 wind spirits on like 1 wound and would have gotten them at that point. And that would have been a whole nother game if I had all 4 wind spirits off the board that early in the game. But I think that was a big flip, rolling that 1. And then those 2 wind spirits were still alive. And this was the turn where he decided he was. And I also couldn't do the Dark Prophecy that turn because Solar Eclipse was up. And I just didn't have the CP to invest in that particular thing. So he won the roll-off and got the double turn and chose that it was going to be Slay the Warlord. So he didn't get it. He didn't kill Archaon. Archaon lived and got into the Sentinels and started chopping them up pretty good. But he had already taken out a majority of my army at that point. Like, we're talking about turn 4 at this point. He had taken out most of my army, and then on my turn 5, I guess, between the mortal wounds and stuff, the only thing I had left was Archaon, and he won the roll off on turn 5, and we were looking at the points. He had just scored a crap ton of points, and then I was ahead by like 2 points or something, and then on his turn he went ahead by 6 or 8 or something like that, and then I could only score. He went ahead by 8, and then I could only score 2 on my turn. So he just kind of topped it out. I lost by 6 points to it, but it was really close. It was really close, and if I could have got those wind spirits earlier, I might have had a game out of it. But when all my army was dead except Archaon going into turn 5 and him winning the turn roll off and getting two full turns of really good scoring, it took him too far out of reach. But still a really good game. I came out of that one, I think it was like 28-22. I was 2-1, but the way they scored it, 28-22, is not a bad loss at that point. So that's where I ended day 1, 2-1. Drew quite possibly the worst matchup I could draw in that tournament. There was that wind spirit list. I had no answer for it. Yep. But I was okay. 2-1 day 1. I was like, okay, well here's where it goes. I got 20 people in the 2-1 bracket. 2 of them are my friends, but what's the chances I get paired into my friends on fucking game 4?
Yeah, I think we're all 2-1, right? We went with a guy named Cliff. With some of y'all know Cliff, he's like one of the best human beings that you could know, like objectively, like just one of the best dudes that you could know. He's from the area and was nice enough to show us around. We've known Cliff for a really long time. Good friend of the group. Does all of our little stupid graphic designs and stuff. The little dumb like gorilla head that's on the back of our vest. He did this shit. He does our shirts. He does everything. All the behind the scenes shit. Tim and Evan do all that shit. We just sit here and take credit for it. But
look in the chat, Blake Butler. That's the guy. That's the Archaon
Buster
guy that we played, Evan.
Yep.
What's up,
yeah,
dude?
Blake Buster.
He's
welcome, man.
Chat, boys.
Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to message us, anyone, if anyone we played, if you have any questions or like ideas or something like. I think that's part of the reason why we usually do so well is that we just have a community that we play a lot, and if we ever have questions, we're able to ask each other, like, and pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah, for sure. Like you're gonna find you're gonna find blind spots you're just not gonna pick up. With another set of eyes is gonna pick that up. You'll get the
Yep.
full picture, right, between the 2 or 3 or 4 or however many people are looking at the problem trying to solve it. But like, side tangent there aside. Yeah, we played, Brian. Round 4.
Yep, round 4.
What mission was that?
Actually,
I forget.
I don't
The
remember.
one where you
3.
pick predators, right?
Oh yeah, you pick predator units,
Whatever that shit's called.
which at the beginning it turned out to be pretty good. I thought, okay, here we go. I can pick the turn, and I did roll the double, so I knew I had 2 turns, and he had one of his predator units as one of his Zangor units right there on the front line. Because of the way that I deployed, I didn't, because I was planning on I gave him the turn and wanted to get 2 turns of combat. I think that's how it went, right? Didn't I give you the turn?
I think that I won.
Oh, we were both. Yeah,
we're
yeah.
both 2 drops together. Won the roll off for. So I was going to dictate turn order, and you deploy a little bit defensively, just so you could see if you would get the turn or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I took first turn and then got the board, so I was able to score. And then you took your turn. I could kind of tell you got the double by the way you're moving, and then you're able to get in those angles like you're saying. And then I made 10 out of 16. 10 out of 16, 5 ups.
Yeah, I got double fighting Vanguard into a 10-man unit of Zangors and didn't kill him. Like, okay. So he makes 10 out of 16 saves, and the Zangors are still there. Not to mention, on the 16 save, or the 6 that got through, you made Filno paints on a lot of that damage. I ended up killing 6 out of that Zangor unit.
Yeah.
And then you, at the start of my next hero phase, you went ahead and rallied 3 back into that unit. What it cost me, though, is it cost me those Vanguard, and it cost me a Predator unit, cost me a Predator point. And then I went into them again with Marauders on the next turn, and they still didn't die. Like, it was terrible. And I think I failed that roll that time. I didn't get the double. I didn't get the Dark Prophecy roll that time. So
Yeah.
I was giving you the double at that point.
Yeah,
but I thought it would be okay because I thought the Marauders would get in there and tear up one of those Predator units. Still, I thought, okay, he rolled hot the first time. I should be fine this time. And then, nope, didn't get him again. And the 3 I left 3 in the unit, and they're battle shock immune because of the Herd Stone. And the 3 that were still sitting there alive were the 3 out of 7 that he rallied back in. So not only 10 out of 16 5-up saves, but then 3 out of 7 6s to put models back in the unit. It was crazy. And then Archaon went into another unit and only killed a couple. It was like the most lopsided dice rolling I've ever had in a game, I think. Or at least the most memorable one, because it's lopsided against me. You never remember when your dice are so hot, but you remember when they go real cold and you die real fast.
Yeah. We're like kind of glazing over some of the nuance of the game too. We kind of had like an extended engagement in the center of the map that was it was like an interesting back and forth because we both had Corn Demon Princes. So it was like we're trying to dance around those, but on the flank, the Vanguard sequence I think kind of decided because by the time it was over with, it was like you didn't get broken ranks. You'd given away the Predator unit, and you didn't get my Predator unit. You would have got it with a monster, so you would have got Predator unit, monster, and battle tactics. So there's 4 points, and then you gave me a Predator unit, so it's a 5-point swing. And in that kind of mission with that kind of scoring, it was like that was the gap that was in the game. I think we still wound up being really close in points, but and you had also rolled your Dark Prophecy roll had locked you into that turn 3 going first, so I get to burn an objective, which in hindsight was like a little bit of a tilt for me too. I didn't really see it
Excuse me.
until it happened. Like when you went first, I'm like, well, if I burn center, now we're fighting over 2 objectives, and I don't think I was hacked onto my objective in a way that you weren't going to get to it. So in hindsight, I think if you were able to burn my objective and just hold on to center, it would have been more favorable for you too. But Dark Prophecy is also really strong. Like just knowing the turn order is also really strong. So in hindsight, it looks bad, but in the moment, like you kind of just want to do it because it's so automatic to do something that'll give you that kind of knowledge. Because in game, that knowledge can be invaluable, right? And it only looks bad because the Variant Guard flopped. So.
And then the Marauders flopped the turn right after. It was like,
yeah, it's just a lot of things in combination, kind of like. And even then, I still barely won. So it's like, I don't know. Over the course of the weekend, like the list performed well, but I also had dice skew 3 matchups also. So I don't know how replicatable the result is. You know what I mean? Like I think that army probably sits closer to 3-2 than 4-1, and I just rolled like really well in a lot of crucial moments over the course of the weekend. I got lucky and went 4-1. Like. But that's
I think
right. That's a dice game, you know.
Yeah, like I mean, like I was fine. I mean, I didn't. It just. I think at the end of that game, I had put Archaon into a unit of Zangors and Vanguard and Marauders into a unit of Zangors, a different one. And I think out of those 2 units, I had killed 7 and like 4. So I had put like 1,600 points of my like actually like 1,400 points of my army, maybe a little more, and not killed 275 point units. It was just nuts how the dice went. I was just like, well, this is. I mean, sometimes it's just how it goes, you know. I mean, I don't think I played my best game, but I didn't play my worst game by far. I just could not get any damage through, and I think that's what 3rd edition is you are going to run into brick walls where you don't get damage through. And combat armies that aren't like uber hardcore into combat, like Iron Jaws and things like that, are going to struggle to move models when they really need to. And I think, and that's where I think some of my list building is going to change after this tournament. Is like, I never really cared about shooting, didn't care. I just wanted to get into combat fast, play armies that could get there fast. But getting there fast doesn't do you any good with all of the new stuff that's out there, +1 to save and all the other things. It's like getting there fast and getting into combat doesn't necessarily get her done. So when I see you boys in Austin, if you guys can make it out to Austin, if you're still on listening and you're coming out there, I'll have something a little bit different out there. So.
Someone was saying that they like how Gavin has his hammers just casually sitting in the corner of the room.
Oh yeah, this thing. Look at this stupid monstrosity. Look at this. This one's okay. This is the Master's mace that's gonna go somewhere else at some point. That thing's really cool. It's cool that they let me hang on to it for a little while, but look at this stupid thing. Like why, Kyle? Why did you do this? What am I supposed to do with this? Like, where is it supposed
hit someone.
to go?
If I would have got that win, if I would have been able to win it, I'm telling you, I was going to break it on the table like Gimli at the fellowship meeting,
where
boy.
it sits. It just doesn't go anywhere else you know what I mean? Like, I can't do anything with it. But we've got plans for it in the very extended future. The 5-year plan for Harambe is very exciting, but it's still a long ways off. How did your game go, Evan? We kind of derailed the conversation there.
What game we on for? Fought a Gloomspite Gets player, and he had Squigs for the most part, and the Mega Gargant ally, or the mercenary, the Gatebreaker one, Fort Kicker, and It was I was a little nervous because the speed it matches mine as in terms of like as long as but then I realized he wasn't doing the subfaction, so he's not re-rolling the movement, and he only had one spellcaster, so and he spread out really like he put his entire army very thin. So he wasn't maximizing the movement either. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna let you go first then. And he went for the objectives and just kind of moved up a little bit, but it went from being like 22 inches or something like that or I guess no, it was 18 inches away for what we were doing, to only like I think 13. He actually deployed just outside of my Mighty Destroyer's charge range, which I think if he had redone it, if he had put himself 11.9 inches within the charge range, then I couldn't have Mighty Destroyer too effectively. But he didn't. He was just outside the 12, so I moved up and rated within 3, and then charged everything in. And I think about half his shit was gone. He chose all his predator stuff was hidden behind his chaff, but I wasn't too worried about him getting into it because I was like, there's no way that he effectively kills my stuff. Well, even though I killed most of his stuff, all his good stuff swung in. Actually, the Rogue Idol decided to just not make any saves whatsoever, and he got the roar off. But I planned it. I put it in a way where he's like, I'm gonna try to capture the center objective, even though it was stuck in between the Rogue Idol and the Maw Crusher. He ran the mercenary right up into the center, and then put all the attacks into the like half-dead Rogue Idol and killed it. But then the Maw Crusher got to swing into the Gatebreaker and ended up doing 34 damage to him. And so he was down on 1 wound left, and then everything else was kind of tied up. And so then I won the roll-off, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just bring it down. And I got 5 points off of that because I scored 2 for the objective, or for the battle tactic, killed a monster with a monster from the battle tactic, and it was a predator killing a predator. So that just like easily scored me more points than what even all the objectives were. And then he had actually that previous turn charged a 10 block of bounders into some brutes and killed all but 1. So I was like really nervous about that, but then I realized he was within range of the Wargog, and the Wargog took 1 wound on himself and killed all of those 10 blocks. So basically 20 mortals to the bounders. Just like killed all of them, and then he took like a wound. And he's just like, after that, he was like, yeah, that was pretty demoralizing, so I think I'm going to call it there. And I was like, I mean, because I mean, the way I describe it when that happens is it's kind of like halftime show, where like the game just stops, and then we just play like a little side game. But I can understand because like I assume if you're watching it from the other side, it's kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just sit here until hopefully you die or you just get tired and decide to stop rolling dice. So, but yeah,
NFL theme music.
yeah, he's like, I guess I'll just be back and go ahead and count it for me. But yeah, I ended up just killing all of them, and then the Maw Crusher got into the. He had a what is it, the big squig, the Mangler squig, and he like one shot that easily. So he had and then Gobsprat killed like basically everything on the other side, and he pretty much had nothing left. So we ended up calling it there, and it was over by turn 3, I believe. So great game, great player. It was his first tournament too, and he was already 1-1 at that point. I'm sorry, he was 2-1 as well. So and as a Gloomspite Gets player, it was really cool to see that he was doing that well up until that point. He just didn't really have anything to deal with. Like his rend was pretty much worthless, and he didn't really have any mortal wound output. He was really banking on the Gatebreaker, but I had suggested that if he had dropped like one thing here and swapped out a couple things, he could have made a big difference. But it was a really good list for his first tournament. So good on him. So that's it.
What game 5? We got one more.
Yep, one more.
I got Giants in game 5. Had a nice little back and forth. The guy I think had some expectations to do really well in the tournament. And maybe overestimated how one-sided that the matchup on paper looks very one-sided because it's Giants against Beast Chaos on Savage Gains, and on paper
Easy boy.
you just kick the objective into the center and then kick the objectives from the center into my deployment zone and like win on points. That's what the sequencing looks like on paper, and I think that maybe made him make a few mistakes as far as over the board because he oversimplified the interaction in between the armies. I made him go first. He kicked the objective, walked into the center, but when he walked into the center, he walked into range of all of my banners. And I rolled exceptionally well on the banners. Did a lot of mortal wounds. In between the mortal wounds and then Zangor charges able to kill all of his man crushers turn 1 on his back objective, which was still only worth 2 points, but it was 2 points that I don't think he anticipated me getting, and I don't think he anticipated losing the models either. And then also, Beast of Chaos have a spell called Savage Dominion, which interacts in a very interesting way with Gargants. So Savage Dominion, the way that the spell works is that I think the range is 18, but I had spell portals, so I put the spell through the spell portals, and then got the spell off, and he had 2 megas right next to each other. One had amulet, so I made the amulet one. I picked the amulet one as my target, and what the spell does is that you roll against the monster's bravery, and if you equal or beat the monster's bravery on a 2d6 roll, you get to move that monster 3 inches towards the nearest enemy unit, which is his units, because it becomes my model for the sequence, and then you pick a unit within 1 inch of that sequence, and then you roll a number of dice equal to the wound characteristic of the model, which happens to be 35 megas, and every 4+ is a mortal wound. So it did 18 mortal wounds to his other Mega Gargant on turn 1, which he wasn't
Best damaging spell in the game.
Yeah, it's like one of those hidden gems in Beast of Chaos, because the book was written so long ago that Giants weren't even a thought in the game at that point, and so it kind of.
What's has a similar spell to that also.
Right. Like lots of like these books that are considered very weak have a lot of power locked in these little hidden things that have become very strong in 3.0. But so for turn 1, I killed 3 man crushers and did 18 mortal wounds to a mega. And at that point, he's in trouble, right? And then we roll off, I win the roll off, and then he's like really in trouble, because at that point, I'm able to finish the damaged mega off because all of his megas are still within range of my banners. I get another rotation of banner spells. I didn't get Savage Dominion off the second time, but it didn't really matter because the banners did enough mortal wounds to where I could finish off that mega with Zangors. And then I surrounded the other mega that he was next to over there and got Hailstorm off on the other mega, which is the half move run and charge spell. And that coupled with the Khorne Demon Prince spell makes it to where he's got a 6-inch moving Mega Gargant that can't get into combat. So it's rendered useless for the most point. And then I kill one of his megas, surround the other one can't get out of combat, dies on his turn too. And at that point, the game's kind of cooked. Like, we kept playing because he was able to get some battle tactics and played the board to get some more points. He was really trying to push himself up into the 3-2 bracket, because I think at that point he realized that the game had been resolved, but he wanted those points, which is commendable. He was really trying to get that better placing from that, but the game was pretty much over after turn 2, and like the sequence went about as well as I could have expected it to, but it's still like one of those things. It's kind of lesson, and like just you really need to know your opponent's army. Like you need to study what your opponent can do, because all it takes is very slight misplays to really give your opponent openings that shouldn't be there, and then it's a game. You know, it's very similar to in chess. There is a whole entire discussion about openings in chess, because it's not the same game, but it's similar to army choice in Age of Sigmar, where you pick an opening, you pick an army, and those things have various strengths and weaknesses. Well, the Beast of Chaos is probably one of the meme openings in chess, right? There's openings in chess that are considered so bad that if they're played in a high level environment, they auto lose. But if you make mistakes against that opening, you just turn it into a game. Like you just turn it into a chess game. It's very similar in Age of Sigmar, where if you make mistakes against Beast of Chaos, it becomes a game very quickly because of the nature of scoring in 3.0. So it's just, I was very pleased with how the list performed over the course of the weekend. I could have asked for a better result, and I got a lot of really critical dice rolls that kind of that I got. The dice rolls exacerbated the trajectory that the army was on already. It was probably a 3-2 army, and I just got lucky and went 4-1. But it's definitely better than the reputation that it has, in my opinion. But that's my tournament. I'll quit talking. I know that you guys had game 5s too, right? Allegedly.
Yeah, what you got, Evan?
So game 5, I actually went against the I don't know if we mentioned, but there was a couple there that they're like a family. Yeah, Partners of War. That's right. And so I was playing the wife, who was a Soul Blight player, and she like her list. I fought Soul Blight before, but I hadn't fought a list like hers before. Had Manfred, had Lokavi, had Radikar, like literally every named hero that they had. It's like it was Lokavi, and then the whatever the wolf chick is. But I was a little nervous, but I kind of saw I had actually talked with Gavin a little bit about it beforehand, because I was like, it seems like it's all about going into the Graveguard. Like the Graveguard were kind of the linchpin of the army, where you tie it down with a bunch of the skeletons and trash mobs, while the Graveguard have the great weapons, get all the buffs, and then go in and like kill something. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just see how she. Even though I knew I was less drops than her, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna actually not do my battle regiment, and I'm just going to start mirroring her drops to see what happens. And so as she was setting it up, I saw that an opening where she put her Graveguard right in the front where the deployment was, which normally at 22-inch deployment, I wouldn't be like, most armies wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I can make that, but I can move 3 times in the hero phase, and that's exactly what I did with two times in the hero phase, and then once in the movement phase. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
3 times.
3 times. Okay. Move 3 times regardless. Well, so I was like, all right. So right where she put the Graveguard, I put the Rogue Idol in the Maw Crusher, and then Gobsprak moved the Rogue Idol with the spell, and then the the Maw Crusher did Fasten, which is the mount trait for once per game movement phase, movement in the hero phase. Then they Mighty Destroyer to move again. And at that point, they were pretty much like, the way I placed it, she had heroes behind the Graveguard, and so she couldn't move back, and I moved both of them on each side, so she couldn't move either way. She couldn't. I was not worried about moving forward, because the redeploy wouldn't have made a difference. And then everything else just kind of went for the objective, and or the 2 objectives. For the battle plan, and then just kind of sat back with some Ard Boys and a War Chanter and Gobsprak, and charged in. Rogue Idol one-shot all 20 Graveguard, because the Rogue Idol roared at the Graveguard, so they couldn't do a +1 save, so they were already a 5-up save with -2 rend, so it just went through, did 24 damage, and then did 24 damage, and then she couldn't make enough 6-up saves to save the unit, so that thing they were gone. And then the Maw Crusher killed like a 10 block of skeletons, and that was I think because when we were talking about it later, she's like, that was when I kind of realized that the game was pretty much over, and she hadn't gone yet. So I always feel bad when that kind of happens, because I've been on the receiving end of that, but I really knew that like if they got to swing at all, they would probably kill whatever they were fighting. So she just tried to play defensively, because I think she was like, at this point, I'm just trying to go for the double turn. she kind of like retreated all her stuff onto one side to get the battle tactic, and then Radikar summoned the wolves and everything, and just kind of lined up for a double turn, which she ended up getting. And then she's like, okay, and she kept retreating and summoning the stuff back, so she was actually holding me down, but she wasn't doing any damage to the stuff. It was just kind of baiting it out. And because like she charged the 10 Graveguard into the Rogue Idol, or I'm sorry, into the Maw Crusher, hoping she could do anything, but they were no longer part of Hunters of the Heartland. So, or actually, I guess I didn't roar at them to begin with, so I don't know how I guess she failed all the saves. But anyway, so she charged in the Graveguard, and then he stomped them and did like 6 mortals, and so they were already down to 4 Graveguard left. So it was not turning out very well. Everything she was doing was just kind of flopping back. But she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna try to go get your back objective, and I'm gonna also kill your battle line," because she could have gotten almost 8 points or 7 points off of that. And so Radikar and Manfred flew into the back line, but she got too close to Gobsprak, and Gobsprak redeployed back onto the objective. So I had 5 Ardboys, the War Chanter, and Gobsprak on there, and she only had Radikar and Manfred. So I was 9, she was I was 11, she was 7, and so she killed the 5 Ardboys, but she couldn't kill the Gobsprak and the War Chanter. So I ended up still holding that objective. So she got the 3 points, but she didn't get the 4 points as well. And then on my turn, the War Chanter I was like, I'm gonna just go ahead and try to do bring it down on Manfred, and I'm gonna stare at him, and I one-shot him, and that was it. And she called it. The War Chanter, or the Morgog Prophet, like killed Manfred, because she asked me, she's like, well, you don't understand, like, because she knew I didn't have any shooting. So she's like, but if you don't, she's like, if you charge him in the combat phase, I'm just gonna teleport him. I was like, oh yeah, I know what's gonna happen. I'm just hoping that I can like kill him with the stare. And so I just stared at him, and I ended up doing enough mortals to actually kill Manfred from full health. So that was very interesting. I mean, I think he took like a couple wounds already from like some other things, but like he was a very healthy, because she even I think healed him. With the hero phase thing, and then I just ended up staring him to death. And I was like, man, this Wargog Prophet like was a last minute change, like I think the day before the tournament, and probably the best decision I ever did. That thing is like, I love it. Like I've never been so in love with something.
I think it was that and Fasten that we changed.
Yeah, Fasten was a change that I made because I was one of those people that was like, why do I need to move 3 times? I only 24 inches is plenty. And then I realized, like, no, like there's no such thing as like enough movement. Like,
nope.
So it worked perfectly. And then the Wargog, yeah, like the Wargog Prophet, man.
We rolled it out before we left there, and I did 16 mortal wounds, I think, right?
I think it was 14, but you did over 30 mortal wounds to him. So just the idea that I think you did almost 40 mortals to him. He just saved that. So it's like,
yeah, Zach just saved a bunch. Because I was rolling the stare and Zach was rolling Archaon.
Blake is saying that his son, like he told his son about the stare because I did it to his Archaon, and he's switching from Gits to Bone Splitters. It's hilarious, man. You just give him the Care Bear stare or something, and just watch as they melt away. Yeah. And I mean, you can just keep doing it too. Like in my list, there's 3 of them that I'm running. Because I'm like, why not?
Range on it.
Yeah. If it was like 3-inch range, you'd be like, okay. I mean, it's kind of gimmicky, but like 12-inch range, the board is small enough that thing can just nuke something on the field if you're.
And
it's like where
you have so many threats that. He's not going to be in danger early. Like they're worried about a Maw Crusher that's jammed up their ass. They're worried about
or even in Bone Splitters. If you try to do anything in Bone Splitters, they're just going to wah in the combat phase, and they're a 4-up ward save. Or the hero with the artifact is a 2-up ward save. And it's like you can't do anything against that. You're not going to kill them. I mean, I guess you could Slayer Kings them, but that's a waste of a Slayer Kings, really. But and the thing is too is you can ally 2 of those guys into Gloomspite gets as well. Watch as they do the stare in their thing as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with Ryan that like the Wargog Prophet with glowing tattoos is like he is the Bone Splitter's army. Like that is what you do it for. So
You run 4 of those jokers.
yeah,
In Bone
shit,
Splitters.
I'd run 6 of them if I actually had the money to get them. There's nothing wrong with that.
My game 5, I went up against a Tempest Eye player. Lots and lots of shooting. He had a Hurricanum. He had the hero version of the steam tank. He had a gun hauler, 20 archers or 20 of the crossbows, 30 or 40 Free Guard, a mage on foot, and Andrasta. I was like, I didn't quite understand what she was doing in there. She had no synergy with anything, but she was able to play around a little
Just
bit.
a monster bracket, probably. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I forgot about Tempest Eye. I was like, well, he had deployed in a way where he gave me pretty much anything I wanted, like to go kill. And then I remembered, but he also deployed a lot of it in cover. And the only thing that was not in cover was the gun hauler. So I went after the gun hauler. I took the turn, and by then it was too late. Had I not already taken the turn and started playing, I probably, hindsight, I'd give him the turn. None of his shooting's in range. Let him come up, and if I win the double at that point, which I did, have 2 turns to bang on him instead of having to weather a turn of his shooting before I get to go again. So, so my turn, I went into the gun hauler, put like 42 wounds into the gun hauler, and he took 5. Like nuts how much damage got put on the gun hauler, and then the saves that he made were just nuts. So the gun hauler lived, so I got nothing done on turn 1 except I took every objective, except his, and that was Savage Games. I think we were playing on that one. So I had nothing. I didn't get his objective, but I got, I had a unit in his deployment zone that he had to mess with or worry about or ignore or whatever. He ignored it, and I moved Archaon center board and moved my Marauder Horseman up on the left objective and the Variant Guard in range to do a counter charge, knowing that I was, getting the double. So took my turn, scored every objective. On his turn, he moves Andrasta up on the right side objective. And if I'm not mistaken, he took Bring It Down on the Sorcerer Lord on Manticore that he only had Andrasta into, which I thought was like, well, she's not going to kill him, but okay. And Sorcerer Lord.
Such a little faith, Brian.
It was like very, very low percentage that she kills that Manticore Lord. But all that being said, she didn't. She did 2 wounds to the Manticore Lord. And on my turn, the Manticore Lord teleported over. I took Savage Spearhead on that one, on that turn. I already had the Marauders in his deployment zone. And I moved Archaon center board. He had moved up, and he had a steam tank. All of his, what are they called? Free Guard, and something else, Hurricanum, I think, right there. Just a big cluster right in the middle of important things. So Archaon's giant base went right there into that. I failed the charge with, this is the turn where I was thinking about, where I failed the charge with the Sorcerer Lord and had to go in with the Marauders anyway, or they would have just been shot off the board. I got very, very lucky, and I think I lost like 7 going in and got into the crossbows and tore them up pretty good. But then Archaon, Slayer of Kings, the steam tank, the commander steam tank, killed that and then beat up a lot of the Free Guard and killed something else that was sitting there. Not the Hurricanum, but something else. But that doesn't matter. And then
Didn't matter. Everything
It didn't matter because he took the turn and didn't retreat those free guild guard out, and I had already knew that he wasn't going to double me, and he didn't move the free guild, so Archeon killed that whole unit of free guild. If they would have retreated back onto his back objective, it would have changed. It would have slowed me down on the getting down to his objective, and but he didn't. So I killed all the free guild guard on his turn, and then on my turn I chose Slay the Warlord, which was a free guild general. I hit him with the Nurgle head, did 3 mortal wounds to him before I ever got there, and went into him and the Hurricanum and got both him and the Hurricanum and took his back objective, and we just called it there. He did try to get Andrasta over onto my back objective where I had the Demon Prince and the Vanguard, but I measured it out where Andrasta, with her movement, she then couldn't make a legal charge into with the Demon Prince sitting there with Bloodslit ground. The Hurricanum, if he would have came around instead of going, but he was trying to protect his home objective. But when I went over there and killed the Hurricanum and I think I got the gun hauler that turn too with something, or maybe I didn't. But at that point, he had the gun hauler, like a handful of crossbows left, and the battle mage on foot. That was what he had left, and Andrasta. And I have fought Andrasta with Archeon and Vanguard before. I didn't even care for that fight. I was just like, whatever. It's kind of like that game we played where you deep stroke your Sigvald and killed my Sorcerer Lord, and after that, I just fucking ignored him and let my Demon Prince babysit him. And that's what happened with Andrasta. The Demon Prince moves as fast as she does and can keep out of her threat range. So Demon Prince just made sure she was always in threat, always babysat. So he didn't kill. The big move was where he was like, oh, that's a big brain play. He left 2 Marauders alive, and I rallied like 5 back into the unit and retreated. I didn't have to retreat because I had killed myself out of combat, and he left 2 there. And so I went back on my turn and just took the objective from Andrasta. Didn't even have to get into her. I just went back there and took the objective from her. And he was, and I think that's the first time he had ever seen anyone retreat out of or get away from combat and not go in. Like, you don't have to lose models on your opponent.
You're not gonna charge me? No, I don't need to.
Why would I charge you? Like, and at that point, really, I mean, in that game, Archeon just carried. Like, he had nothing above neg 2 rend. So, I mean, he had no shot at killing Archeon, so I was able to bully the center board until I forced the fight to center board, and then once Archeon killed enough there, I just went to his house and slept in his bed.
He grinded his feet up on his couch.
Mm-hmm. But it was a great event. It was a fun time. I just hate that the only complaint I have, and I, we talked about it with the guys there, with the event coordinators there, and it's like, go all the way to New Orleans
for the homies.
But,
oh yeah,
it was all right.
It was an excellent game, and I think so is that everything regarding the?
Well, I think I ended there 3-2, and I was the top of the 3-2 bracket, so that was a good, like.
Yep, 15th.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, and yeah, sorry, it's like we're almost on 3 hours, so.
Late. Thanks for everybody who stuck around, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate the comments and stuff too, like talking about us. We can't grow the community without you guys. But I wanted to just give a quick shout out to Bill Souza and Caleb, because everyone thought it was a miracle when I went 4-1 with Slanesh at GT, but then he went 5-0 with Slanesh at GT. Yeah, it is just like awesome. Like, his list is like one of those lists where if people were to be like, "Hey, what do you think of this list?" I was like, "Trash." Like, honestly, I think that's a 1-4 list is what it is. Like, but I think in the hands of a great player, like it took it. I mean, same with Gavin and his Beast of Chaos. It just elevated a list that everyone thinks is garbage.
He seems decent at Age of Sigmar too.
Yeah,
I'm sure Caleb's also.
And Caleb had an excellent. It looked like he had a really good games, and he also had amazing paint job on his stuff. Yeah, like
Christmas.
Well, I think what you guys proved at these last few events, and what Bill Sousa and these guys are proving is, like, it's not about Army right now in 3.0. I mean, I think any Army can win an event with the right matchups. You get the dice rolls that you need. I think any Army can do it right now in 3.0. That's
yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. It's definitely not like impossible to win with any kind of list. I mean, you can really bring fairly anything and do well with it. So,
wait till y'all see what I'm bringing to Austin. It's gonna be wild.
So, anything else anyone want to say before we say
No,
bye?
it's late.
No,
Yeah,
knock
it's
it out.
past my
Tired.
bedtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
for
everyone.
staying, guys. Yeah. See y'all.
That was long.